And we have another 10 minutes of play left here at the Sherry Bangla National Stadium in Dhaka. Been joined by Atta Ali Khan. Atta? It's been interesting.
Turning out to a nail-biting finish. What a test match. What a fantastic test match. This is turning out to be tantalizing stuff. And he's walking off. Shannon Gabriel. 18 required to win this test match and square the series. They were down and out. But it is this man on screen, Mehdi Hassan, who's raised the hopes of not only his team but the whole nation. Can he do the miracle? 31 of 53. He smashed 2 sixes off the bowling of Rakeem Cornwall. Does he have it in him to take his side home?
Interesting what sort of shot he goes for here now with the ball spinning away from him. Would it be sweeping? Or does he have an inside-out over cover in his repertoire?
Oh! That ball, Myrie. Keep going, Myrie. Come on, Myrie. Come on, boys. Work in there, boys.
Abu Jahid there for 14
Come on,
deliveries.
boys.
But it's all about Mehdi Hassan now. West Indies just need 1 wicket. Bangladesh, 18 runs.
Yes, Myrie. Well ball, Myrie. Keep going, War. Come on, War. Keep going, Myrie. Come on, Wakila. Catch it.
It is a series victory for the ages. Given all that has been stacked against them, coming on this tour to Bangladesh, these men have achieved what many thought impossible. The West Indies win by 17 runs here at the Sherry Bangla National Stadium, and Captain Fantastic Craig Brathwaite has made his men national heroes.
The 2-test clean sweep that
First
surely
win.
swept you off your feet.
And you're still in a daze as West Indies snatched a breathtaking 17-run win over Bangladesh after winning the first test by 3 wickets, chasing what seemed like a fleeting 395-run target.
It was another nerve-tingling, nail-biting, unimagined win. The scoreboard, for all that must be recorded, reads West Indies 409, then tumbling to 117, Bangladesh 296 and 213, failing to grasp the 231-run target within their reach.
And your eyes keep popping at what is magical and not a mirage.
The agility of the bulky Rakeem Cornwall in the slips and his man of the match off-spin spells of 5 for 74 in the first and 4 for 105 in the second inning.
The determined, defiant knocks of 90 by man of the series Nkrumah Bonner and 92 by wicketkeeper Joshua Da Silva in the first inning, with both returning in the second for gritty knocks of 38 and 20 respectively.
The strategies and the shrewd captaincy of Craig Brathwaite throughout both tests, timely taking the crease in Bangladesh's run chase in the second test for his effective off-spin spell of 3 for 25, along with his tactical use of left-arm spinner Jamel Warrican, who returned figures of 3 for 47. And we dare not forget the unbeaten 210 from 310 balls by debutant Kyle Mayers in the opening test, the highest score by a debutant in a fourth inning and the second double century scored in tests by a West Indies debutant behind the Jamaican Lawrence Rowe, a knock which proved pivotal for our 3-wicket win.
Standing in as the replacement team as a result of 10 of our regular players not taking the tour because of reported COVID-19 fears. They simply stood out. Hi, I'm Stratton Palmer.
And I'm Curtis Myrie.
Welcome to Real Chat.
Big chat about this amazing feat. We have on the line James Clive Adams, the gritty former West Indies Test captain, a steady left-handed batsman, useful left-arm orthodox spin bowler, and good fielder, especially in the gully position. He was also an occasional wicket keeper.
A test batting average of 41.26, scoring 3,012 runs in 54 matches. His highest score was an unbeaten 208 not out against New Zealand in Antigua back in 1995. He is now Director of Cricket for the West Indies Cricket Board. No better man to talk to about the confidence renewed and the cricket plan that we must now take seriously to the crease.
Hi, Jimmy. Hello.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
To you. All right, Jimmy, we have seen 2 tests in which many West Indians thought that we would have lost, and not only lose, but lose disgracefully. And yet we had some magical moments, some world record beating performance by the batsmen, and what is more, the confidence and the determination and the steadfastness shown by the cricketers who were replacement players, but who were told previously that by Sir Clive Lloyd that they should show the world that they are able cricketers. That they did. Jimmy, now the route going forward is what is next for our cricketers and for cricket. What is the plan from the board now going forward?
Well, we'd obviously want to build on what we saw in Bangladesh, both in terms of performance, and I think that's I'm speaking having watched from a distance, obviously, like most people here, but it wasn't just the result, I would think, that heartened everybody who was watching, but also just a general attitude that was shown by the group of players. I think there's reinforced that a lot is achievable, not just with talent, but with some of the intangibles that we saw on display during the 2 test matches. And it certainly has given a lot of us who are involved in the game in the Caribbean renewed optimism. That if we can channel the minds as well as the bodies of the players to the challenges in front of us, that we can compete. We have an important set of international tours coming up, COVID permitting, starting with Sri Lanka very shortly. And we very much want to see the team giving us the same, and again, not necessarily results, but showing those intangibles on a consistent basis. I think that for me is the starting point, because I do believe that irrespective of how much talent we might have or how quickly we are developing that talent, if those intangibles aren't married to them, then we're going to be falling short. That's a sort of general overview. Mm-hmm. We desperately get at the moment results, because there are some important future tournaments that we don't want to be going to qualifiers for, having experienced that the last time. So in terms of one-day cricket, we need to start getting some performances in one-day cricket, as well as the other formats, but one-day cricket now is critical.
All right, you mentioned intangibles, and clearly one of those intangibles is the whole element of motivation, being stirred and inspired, wanting to play for the West Indies. That involves pointing perhaps to getting everybody together, the prevailing pack of players, the team, joining the legends in various sessions even. Is there a plan afoot pursuing that end?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Curtis?
Yes,
I'm
I'm saying that one of the intangibles, beg your pardon, would have to do with how the team is motivated, right? How the team is inspired, because as you say, it's not just the results. It's the whole demonstration of grit, of this unyielding spirit that was reflective of how we played the West Indies way. Now, in harnessing this, in strengthening this, is it that we are considering engaging the legends perhaps to get together with these younger players? What are we doing in terms of perhaps a mentorship program?
At the international level, a lot of this is something that has to be if we're going to go down that route, it has to be planned and coordinated through the people in charge. So that is something that we're always prepared for. But in terms of timing, in terms of who, and in terms of when, all of this has to be coordinated, and your head coach has to be quite happy with that. In the recent past, we've had Brian spending time with our young batsmen. We've had Ronnie Sarwan spending time with our young batsmen. We've had Chandra Paul spending time with our young batsmen. We have Curtly Ambrose spending time with our young fast bowlers. So we are always looking for an opportunity to engage those who have gone before and done well. In terms of going down what I would call a formal role.
Yes.
Once you talk about engaging somebody formally, then it has to be a really good fit. I don't believe in just saying bring whoever
for whoever's sake, right?
A high performance environment, unless it is structured, it is planned, and people are very clear on what the targets and objectives are.
Right.
But as a general rule, Curtis, we are, and I will say not just at the highest level, at the international level, but at the levels below, we are very, very keen to try and dig out all that we can out of the minds and hearts of our legends, and use this to add value to our high performance programs. That's an ongoing issue across all our high performance teams. So whether it be 8 teams, whether it be camps that we have here in Antigua or in a few other territories, that is something that is ongoing.
And before I turn you back over to Stratton, speak to me of moving from a high performance center to perhaps academies in the respective territories. Is that something on the radar as well?
Well, what we have, I think we're at I'd almost say an overdue but critical juncture in that. What's the best way to put it? I'm trying to see how best I can structure this answer. To really get our cricket consistently to the level where we will be competing internationally on a consistent basis, the territories have a massive role to play in that.
Right.
Now, to get there, what we have now is we have a team of people centrally located with Cricket West Indies that have the expertise to help the territories develop their own high performance program. This hasn't been in place before, but we have that team together, and we're at a point now where we're encouraging the territories to work with us, because we're here now to work with them to see how best we can help each territory. Because when I talk about high performance, it's not a building per se.
No.
It's more helping people to know what good looks like, what best practice looks like in terms of a structure for your under 15s, your under 17s, right through to your players leaving under 19s but going into a franchise or as you would call it, big men's cricket. And we are now in a position to help and work with all the territories establishing what that looks like. What are the minimum standards that we must have in place? And I think more importantly, Curtis, is to be able, through these professionals, to tell them why. So it's not just a case of pointing your finger from head office and saying, do X, do Y. It is a case of collaborating and saying, listen, without this in place, this is the outcome that we all are going to have to face. And therefore, let's get a minimum structure in. Let's get a minimum level of support. This is why we need it. And this is, we have people within these areas now at head office who can really walk you through what you need as a structure, what good looks like, how is it going to move a player in this particular area through his formative years, junior cricket, coming into senior cricket, and then to be able to monitor that over the next 3 to 5 years and just keep improving it. Part of it is going to involve coach education, because to get to players, you can only get to players through coaches. That's the bottom line.
Yes.
Most countries now don't have a club system that I grew up on now, where your Dujans and your Maurice Fosters and your Michael Holdings were around playing club cricket, teaching us as kids what good looked like. So a huge component of this is making sure that education on our part is a massive part of what we're trying to do. And it's not just educating coaches, it's going to be educating trainers, educating physiotherapists, educating sports psychologists in the realm of best practice. How do we produce a quality player through junior cricket, coming into senior cricket and beyond, and to have that level of support available to these players 12 months a year. It cannot be that we believe that the system that I go back to back in the day, where you come together with a coach for a month before a youth tournament, you go to a youth tournament, you play the youth tournament, and then you come back home and it is back to club cricket, which might have worked back in the day. But that system, it isn't available anymore for different reasons.
Yeah.
So to get to these players, to create our own, to produce our own players, I am saying that I believe that we are now in a position where we can facilitate, we can collaborate, we can work with the franchises, because the answer to us sustaining performances at the highest level is going to live or die, sink or swim on how quickly we can get the franchises capable of constructing, implementing and managing their own high performance systems across the different levels and across the different genders, boys and girls.
All right, Jim, it's provoked a lot in my mind, but let me start with this. I remember some years ago when the current chairman and selector, Roger Harper, went to South Africa. I don't know if you're on that tour, I can't remember, but when he came back, he was marveled at the facilities. That is one area. Are you satisfied with the facilities? And turning to the idea of an academy. We saw recently where we heard that India had a fast bowling academy, and we are now able to churn out quite a number of fast bowlers. Then the fact that we don't play enough cricket, as you said, and therefore, as with modern sport, you want to get the youngsters from as early as possible and have them going through the technical things, etc., under guidance, and then moving them from age group to age group. One question people ask is like, is it Springer out of Barbados? One of the better performers that they work up under 19, not being selected to carry forward by any of the franchises, while others have been. Things like that. Or we move them from that stage to test stage?
All right. Zlatan, you asked me maybe about 10 different questions.
Yes.
Again and give me them. My memories is too good at my age and stage. So break them down one by one for me now, and I'll try and address them.
What is it that Roger saw in South Africa that we don't have even now?
We facilities.
The facilities, one.
The biggest challenge for us we are not yet comparative with regards to facilities, Stratton, and I would just, this is without looking at an audit or just talking off the top of my head. Our practice facilities generally across the Caribbean need serious attention. We still have a mindset of getting everything all ready for the game, the focus being on the game, where a lot of teaching of the game is done in your practice facilities. And I think culturally, we need to have a cultural mind shift where we start to appreciate that practice facilities become almost more important, because that's where the player will spend 90% of the time learning the game.
Right.
I'm not saying at the expense of your match facilities. I am saying to give it equal importance. So that is one area critically that it is too basic not to have.
Not to have, okay.
To have players out of competition for 9 months a year and not have proper surfaces, proper net, safe net.
So that's an area which has to be improved going forward. What about the idea, like as I said in India, a fast bowling academy? Could that be arranged around the region?
That is something that we started a few years back by way of identifying our better young fast bowlers and pulling them into regular sessions in Antigua with that level of expertise. Different people have different ways of structuring that. What I will say is that the old Stanford ground, Coolidge Cricket Ground in Antigua is eventually going to be our home base for all sort of high performance work that we pull players in for. But there's nothing stopping us, as we have already started, there's still nothing stopping us for doing two things, Stratton. There's nothing stopping us from continuing to identify the best that we have at the different levels and pulling them into a central facility. But I'm going to qualify that. Far more sustainable than that for me is to ensure that through the capacity that we already have, let us get territory by territory the territories to appreciate that if they have the people on the ground, we can give them that information, help them to plan the program for these players. Because if a player comes and plays, let's say you get a young fast bowler from Jamaica and he plays under 19 cricket and then does well enough to play West Indies under 19s, and we feel that this is a kid who might go even beyond playing for Jamaica, he might play for the West Indies. We would be saying, okay, this kid needs to start his at 17, maybe 17, 18. We need to start a program that is going to get him strong enough to play Test cricket at 23.
Yeah.
We're going to need to upskill him skills-wise. Now, yes, we can bring him to Antigua for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe twice a year. But he's really going to learn the game, Stratton, based on what he gets by way of support in Jamaica. If Jamaica don't have that level of support, without being overly dramatic, it's just not going to happen.
So what is needed is follow through. I tell you,
but before he goes, and I'm going to be knocked out by the producer very soon. But 30 seconds, I have to leave this one with you. The labor market, real or perceived, is having the talent and playing in various leagues of the world. And sometimes in the pavilion, we wonder if that is not at the expense of what you feel and ultimately believe how you should represent, beg your pardon, the West Indies. Right? Now, that is something that must be troubling. It pulls you from left to right. How do you keep the focus on players wanting to represent the West Indies? What goes through your mind?
I think there's more choice for players because of T20 cricket, but I don't see that as a negative, Curtis. Maybe I'm still too close to my playing years, but I believe choice is a good thing. My bottom line is if we can produce world-class players up to age 23 and coming through the system, I'll be disappointed if a player coming through the system, having represented Jamaica, played 18 cricket, and then graduated to international cricket. There are enough windows that will accommodate T20 cricket now for players to still play T20 cricket in leagues and play representative cricket for the West Indies or England or Australia.
Jimmy, just a comment as we close. Give me a one-word or one-sentence answer. The whole respect that they have for West Indies cricket, the pride that we saw in the two tests from our, call them second tier player for want of a better word just now. But are we educating them about the importance not only to themselves and family, but to the region of playing for the West Indies and getting back to the days when players like you, yourself and others, the pride was foremost?
That is something that we are addressing from even earlier. This is something, when players come into the under-19 program, we have an induction process that really spends a lot of time putting that across. We bring past players. The last one, a couple of years ago, we had currently Ambrose going to spend about a week with the youngsters in St. Kitts as part of that induction process. Just, you know, if there's anybody who's in any doubt about who they're representing, then within our induction program, we're responsible for making sure that they were very well aware of who they are and who they represent.
Okay.
So it's something we take very seriously.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, on that note, Lord, we could have you all evening, you know. We should have you all evening.
I'm concerned about marking the various territories because I'm not pleased with how Jamaica is contributing to West Indies cricket.
But we'll take that up at another time with you.
All right.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you for engaging
No
us.
problem, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
Yeah, good
thanks,
evening to you too. We're just getting started. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Real Chat, and remember to share, subscribe, and support the program by contributing to the Cash App $Real Chat that's highlighted on your screen. Strats, we have to have a cricket plan now that is going to cash in on what marveled all of us from this gritty performance in Bangladesh.
Yeah. I'm a little bit happy about what we heard from Jimmy.
Yes.
But sad that the follow through doesn't seem to be there. When he spoke to us, for example, about the induction plan, he said some time ago, it should be a continuous thing to my mind. Eh? And secondly, when you look at the difference in the cultures as it is apparent based on what the coach said after the series victory against Bangladesh, that there's a different culture. What is causing that? How are we going to solve that problem going forward?
There was something else that concerned me, because he said, all right, words to the effect, you don't want to be doing this, hairy-fairy, right? So engaging past players and, I stress, legends.
Legends.
Yes, and correctly so, has to be within a certain fit by the head coach and so on. It's time to maybe now speak to the head coach as to how receptive he is to this and how he sees this as an urgent need and fit, because clearly we need this to really strengthen the spark, right? Because it must serve us that, right? Before we start talking about we're turned the corner. It was, epic. But the spark now, that must now shine brightly now through for ensuing series.
From my experience.
How is the coach, how is the head coach going to be engaging everybody?
Well, because the head coach must understand that this is not about coaching. From my experience as a coach, when you call in player to speak to them, what you find generally happening, Curtis, that they serve to reinforce what you're trying to put across, and it aids the process.
And you see, when you begin to talk about the fit, you wonder if there are not underlying currents of protecting turf, right? And whereas you notice in Australia, I mean, they gladly embrace.
As had mentioned, England,
and everybody else gladly.
Past players are critical.
Right.
To
So we're hoping that this is a pursuit of West Indies cricket. Really, this is where we have to
But
be.
it was useful speaking to Jimmy.
Oh, very useful.
And a lot of the things, are kind of in place, but not fully entrenched.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting, and I hope that I'm wrong.
Yes,
Okay.
right. And we can only hope. And the Jimmy we know, right? Quietly, but assiduously, keeps going after what he envisions as beneficial, right? So I'm confident that, hey, this will eventually be realized.
Right.
Right?
All right. Let's take a break and come back with our next guest.
Good.
All right, we now move from Antigua to Jamaica, where we speak to Courtney Francis, Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Cricket Association, having just spoken to Jimmy Adams over there in Antigua. Courtney Francis, welcome to Real Chat.
Good afternoon, sir, and good afternoon to your listeners, and thank you for having me.
First question, based on what Jimmy said, they can set the template, they can do certain things, identify players, carry them to Antigua for 3 weeks, deal with certain things, get some people to talk to them. But the follow through, what happens when these players come back to Jamaica? What is the program that we have to really move them forward?
The West Indies has an extended programs to all the territorial boards, as Jimmy may have mentioned, right?
Right.
And so when they come back here, the respective franchises within the territories will have to follow up on those directives. So oftentimes the programs are here, they come to the franchise training, we follow up with those things, and we try our best as the resources are available and the time allows to make sure that the players follow through.
But what specifically are you following up on now as we speak?
We follow up on fitness, we follow up on lifestyle practices, and you have to understand that in Jamaica now we are not as free as maybe some other territories because our numbers have to be in small groups, maybe 4 or 5 the maximum based on the risk management, the enforced orders by the parliament.
How many players do you have at a time? 4, you said. Is there the possibility of having, say, a team at Sabina Park after testing?
We normally would have had a team before the COVID. Since COVID, since March, we cannot have that large number of persons here. We got a sign off from the Ministry of Health, and our numbers have a maximum of maybe 7. And that's 7. We can't have the 7 within the same locals at the same time. Some maybe have to be on the field, some have to be in the indoor nets, or maybe a few in the gym to have those spacing.
To be cheeky, Courtney, just give them a jockey whip and have them in the man. That happens there, why not with the level players who are doing the testing?
Before the COVID, we would have had those sessions here. We would have persons here from the University of the West Indies. We run courses with them. We would have had nutritionists. We would have had persons deal with banking and personal lifestyle. So we would have had those persons come in, have those sessions, they taped, and the players would have been relatively closer grouping. And so therefore those are some of the things that we would have done to include lifestyle, fitness, and stuff like that. Even coaching seminars would have added the players.
This is no tongue-in-cheek. We're all concerned about our slumping fortunes over the years. I'm talking about Jamaica's cricket fortunes, right?
Yeah.
It is a concern. What is it that we need to do differently?
Well, I think prior to the COVID, we had a strategic retreat to include our members. It was a 5-year strategic plan, and up to COVID, about 80% of the targets that were set were completed. Since then, that gotten a significant decline, and so therefore those numbers have to be relooked at, and we have to redouble our efforts now under the circumstances that we have now to see how best we can move our players to a different level. I must say though that we're not winning, and it is a concern, right, regionally. But we put in 2 individual players because part of the plans too was that prior to now, we would have had enough persons on white ball contract at Cedar Black. There were about 7 persons on white ball contracts, right? And we have persons outside of that, like the Russell and the Chris Gale and those persons and Chadwick, who played white ball cricket internationally. However, though, our red ball cricket too, we also had a plan to move our players. We had 1 player at a time. At about 2 years ago, we had 1 player. Now we have 3 players in the red ball situation. And so therefore, that in itself has grown significantly. So that's a move in the right direction. We now have to find that combination now to be able to win regional tournaments, age group and the senior team. As you see, the team that is out there is not, it's an experienced team. I think that they're playing extremely poorly. And I just hope to God that we can get it together now to put in a couple of good performances.
The critical element to all of this, with all the plans that we're talking about, if the facilities are no good, then we won't produce good players. Do we have a first-class facilities where the hopefuls, the ones who are moving towards representing Jamaica, can go to get regular training on good surfaces and good surroundings?
And just before you answer, just add to that the state of our pitches?
Well, COVID is going to improve us in that scenario. It has been a concern for me for many years in that we play cricket 12 months of the year. And so the many activities that we have had is that our pitches has become flat and not like before when cricket was of a season, like cricket was usually played for 6 months. So what they find happening now is that a lot of things burn out. The players burn out, the pitches burn out, the umpiring tiring over a period, and so therefore you did not have that reset. So hopefully now with it being out for a while, and when things start back now, you will have pitches now that can bounce right before. So that is going to increase your batting skills, it's going to increase your bowling capacities and abilities. And so therefore that reset now should give us an opportunity now to maybe identify and can categorize players as they restart cricket.
So the word then finally, Courtney, is that we are seeing the corner, we are in the corner, or we are approaching the straightaway?
No, for me, we just still far away. I think we keep comparing ourselves to ourselves and not comparing it to what is happening elsewhere. For me personally, I mean, we are here, we're doing some stuff. We need to do it more consistently. We need to have more scientific research so that we can measure the things and see what we do to get what results, and that is shared among everybody in the region, so we're more competitive. So I am not one who feel that we are in the corner, turn the corner. I don't think that we're at a place where we need more data to make better decisions.
All right, Courtney, thanks for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Good. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started. We'll be right back. You on Real Chat, and remember to share, subscribe, and support the program by contributing to the Cash App $Real Chat highlighted on your screen. We're talking about a confidence that is being renewed.
Yes.
I use renewed instead of regained for specific reasons, right? We sometimes are in haste to get ahead of ourselves. So one has to, I'm approaching this cautiously. Good? I'm elated, yes. I feel the fire, yes. But I want to make sure that with every step now that we take, it's about the real cricket plan that must now be placed at the crease to critically, significantly increase our fortunes. We have with us Trinidad's Tony Gray, a lethal West Indies fast bowler in his time, who was only able to play 5 tests and the 25 one-day internationals because of injury, though having a prized haul of 22 test wickets at an average of 17.13 and a strike rate of 40.3. And that's something to talk about. Yeah. Tony, welcome to Real Chat.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon to you, Curtis. Good afternoon to your listeners.
Good.
Stratton Palmer also here, Tony. I remember back in about 88, it was in Trinidad. I was there for hockey tournament, should have come to a test match. You didn't play that test match. Was that where your trouble began in terms of injury? You withdrew from the team?
No, I think that during my time of playing international cricket for the West Indies team, you had to be fit all of the times because of the what seemed to be a lot of fast bowlers that came through.
Yes.
A lot of quality fast bowlers, not just good fast bowlers, but quality fast bowlers and great fast bowlers. And you couldn't afford to be injured, or you couldn't afford to not perform well. And that was the situation there. But, you know, I was happy to represent the people of the region. And subsequently, I went on the coaching, which is an extension of what I feel for West Indian people.
And then latterly, you would have been made of selectors, and that's a story in itself down there in Trinidad and Tobago.
You're talking about the head selector?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I was a Red Force selector just last season. We did very well. We started off, 2 years ago being last place in regional 4-day competition. We became second place at the end of a truncated season, which was because of COVID-19. So we did very well as selectors, and players did very well also.
Yeah. All right. Having achieved that, is there anything from that program which showed massive improvement under your leadership that we could take to West Indies cricket now that we are looking at a renewal and looking at the way forward as to what can and what should be done?
That's an excellent question. I think that obviously selectors play a huge role in the development process. I think that recently and, deep into the past, we've always had extreme talent. We've seen it at the under-19 level. Just 2016, we won the under-19 World Cup tournament, and we have immense talent. And it's just to be strategic in the way we go about things, especially selectors, because we can either really and truly improve players, or we can go the opposite in the way we select them for different formats of the game.
You're happy with the strategies being applied overall?
Not really. I think that, for example, let me just use some examples, and this is not to condemn anybody, but
right.
the previous selectors, not this selection panel, I think this selection panel is doing a much better job. But the previous selectors, like Shea Hope, for example, they picked him for all formats of the game. We must understand the development process. Shea Hope started off well in one-day internationals. He's got an average of 50. Struggled a bit in test match cricket, and then we put him in T22. So I think that we have to be mindful that we have to be strategic as we try to develop our young players in what format of the game we put them in.
They're horses for courses?
Horses for courses, but I mean, all right, for example, if you want to have a test player, and Shea Hope is still a developing player, we have a misconception that if you are playing test match cricket, you are the finished article. You're not. If you want to develop players, you have to understand the chemistry, for example. If you have a player like Shea Hope who has batting ability and has had an average of 50 and has not had such a good average playing test match cricket, but he's had 2 very good centuries, a record-breaking century in each innings at Headingley a couple of years ago, then you know that he has the ability to make runs at test match cricket. But if you put him in T20, you are destroying him. So we have to be strategic, as I mentioned, as selectors, to know what format of the game to put players to further develop them.
One last thing from me. What is really our Achilles heel in that regard?
Well, I mean, it's something that we have not done in the Caribbean, and I found it to be nonsensical and foolish. We have not done our research. You had Clive Lloyd on the other day, last week, and he was absolutely brilliant. I mean, we have not done a research and to find out why we were the best team, the most dominant team in not just cricket, international cricket, but in professional sport. I mean, to dominate proceedings for the, 16, 17 years is something that might not be eclipsed again. So we have to do our research, and we have it down as natural talent, but it's not natural talent. The players went through what we call in coaching a logical sequential path to progress that we need to revert to. And you will see the difference. We'll see the progress of our youngsters. But we've seen a lot of the systems being taken away from our players, and that's why we're struggling internationally at the moment.
Tony, who bells the cat, and how do we treat quality, a quality individual like you, both as a player coming into selection, doing well, and it is tossed aside? How does that affect the cricket? And is this the way to go?
Well, I think it's education. I think that if we are not educated properly, then it's going to have the reverse effect on West Indies cricket. the players go through what you call a logical sequential path to progress. What do we do at the under 13 level? What do we do at the under 15, the under 17, the under 19 level is important. What do we do to continue to cement the rudiments of the game at the under 23 level? I think it has to be a concerted collective effort by the boards of the region, because we concentrate on CWI a lot and we don't concentrate on the other boards. But the players are coming from the other boards. I mean, the other boards are the ones that are managing the players from the developmental stages. So it's important that they are well educated too, administratively and otherwise, to know what to do at different stages of the development process. And I think that we have faltered in that way.
That process, and again, I see the producers waving a fist. So there is just one more from me and one more from yourself. But that process, speak to us about how critical ongoing communication has to do with that. Because we all get in a tizzy almost, and under the grand canopy of insularity when we are dealing with team selection, right? And what apparently we are not doing is keep talking to each other. That development process that you are pointing to, we keep talking to each other, the respective boards throughout the region.
That was my question put this way. We have several territories, but we are one region. How do we coordinate and collaborate? Should your expertise only reside...
And how do we keep communicating?
Should your expertise just reside only in Trinidad? What is it you could have shared with Jamaica, etc.?
Right.
All right. Well, the thing about it, first of all, we have to understand it's a very complicated, very intricate situation when we talk about West Indies cricket. It is one of the hardest systems in sport to manage because of, the separation of our islands through water. My point is that there must be commonality. There first has to be discussion, and I talked about research, but we have not done the analytical research. And then there has to be a coordinated effort by the different boards, first of all, and to get people who are involved to make decisions when it pertains to our cricket development. And there must be commonality. So discussions must be ongoing. There must be people who understand the development process in the Caribbean, not just picking players who are people who have performed well at international level, but they have to be educated. So it's not just education, but further education of everybody that decision makers in so many different ways. That is the important factor because the game evolves all the time. So there has to be communication, there has to be commonality, and there has to be policies that are put in place, strong policies. For example, I don't think that on the 13s, on the 14s, on the 15s, on the 17s, on the 19s should be playing T20 cricket, right? I think that T20 cricket should be used as a baiting process. But we have these young players not developing their technical aspects of the game as yet, and they're looking to hit the ball all over the place. And then we are quarreling with them when they're not performing well at international level.
All right, we're just out of time, Tony, but excellent presentation.
Yes, indeed,
Thank you for sharing with us, and we'll call on you in the future.
Okay, no problem. Thanks very much for having me.
Good. Thank you, Tony. It has been engaging, in a word. And here is someone who has a particular type of engagement style.
Yes.
Yeah, we look forward to this discussion. And let's say it again, the confidence that's renewed, yes, but the cricket plan now, that must be seriously taken to the crease. Welcome Basil Butcher Jr., sports coordinator and the son of the late West Indies cricketer Basil Butcher of Guyana. How do you see things? What we have to, you are the conditioner. Condition West Indies cricket for me.
Good afternoon to you and to your listeners. Uh, my role, what I do for a living, I'm a part of a growing field. So I can give you a little background. Part of a growing field, we're called neuroathletic trainers. Whereas we lots of us are trainers and so on, but now we look at it through the lens of the brain, because the brain controls everything. Everything is a reflective of brain conditioning, your movements, etc., etc. So just to give a layman's understanding how this would work vis-a-vis cricket. When the brain, think of the brain as a GPS, and the brain has satellites to get information to put together to determine the direction the car has to go in. And one of those satellites are the eyes, then you have your balance, which are in the air, the muscles, the joints, the skin, etc. Now, if that information the brain is receiving from all of those entities are not on the same page, you're going to have poor movement, you're going to have poor execution of skill, you'll have pain, tightness, muscle, weakness, all of those different things. So, because of the information that we have gotten about neuroscience in the last 20 years or so, we now understand neuroanatomy more so. So we as conditioning specialists can look at a person, watch how they move and so on, and get an idea as to which parts of their brain is not functioning as well. Give them drills to upregulate that, and their movement changes. They can develop skills faster. They can enhance their skills, etc.
Allow me, Stratton. Yes. And please, Mr. Butcher Jr.
Yes.
Let us engage you to be thinking about some of the skills and some of the drills that you will be taking our players through.
Can I ask a question before?
Yes, yes.
Basil, are you known about in West Indies circles? And have they approached you? Is this something they are willing to look at? Because we say the whole thing of even have a psychologist around the team has been poo-pooed. But this is science. Where are you in all the mix?
And that's why we're asking about that skill set and drill set.
Actually, I sent a presentation I put forward because this stuff, we have guys doing this stuff. I have colleagues that are doing this in football. I've got several German colleagues that are doing it with German athletes across sports, football, etc. I was delighted to hear during the India-Australia series, Shane Warne talked about something they've now hearing about called the quiet eye. That is something that we've been talking about in our circles, because as a batsman, for example, now we have the ability to track that batsman, where that batsman has his eyes at all the pertinent moments of playing a cricket ball. Oh. So now we're not going and guessing. Like for example, we would say, this player is not watching the ball. No, we could know where the eyes are. So, and the cool thing about this, you could then give that player drills to train, so they can keep their eyes fixed where it's supposed to be at the pertinent times throughout the
Basil.
Yeah, but
Basil, you're still dodging the question.
No, yeah, but that's why I want to.
Do they know about you?
Yeah, that's what I want to ask you. Stratton's question. Are they engaging you?
Because I have a friend who has connections at the board. I sent my information to him, and he forwarded, because he first told Jimmy, and Jimmy said, send it to the sports medicine guy. I never received a response.
Oh,
I
my.
sent it back to my friend a second time. Because he said the sports medicine guy said, send it back to me again. I sent it. He sent it a second time. I have never received a response. So I don't know.
Would you?
What I would just want to say quickly, I did a online class with cricketers last summer during the pandemic. I had a couple guys from Guyana in it because from a cricketing perspective, how I could apply this. Now, you guys know, a batsman has to be balanced, has to be still, keep their head still, the ball coming towards them. Whenever they execute a shot, they have to be still and balanced as they execute the shot, right? Now, you would hear a coach would say, this batsman, you're not keeping your head still. Your head is not still in the execution of the shot, and they must do all kinds of things. But no, none of these coaches ever think about looking at the batsman's eyes. They never think of looking at the batsman's balance as he or she moves their feet towards the ball. The system, is it working when they do that? They're only looking at it, or the guy is off balance, or the guy is not keeping his head still. That's where people like myself come in, because I now can look at the player and assess certain things to see, is it because when this guy moves his foot, his head position changes, he's no longer getting, is no longer, his balance system is no longer functioning optimally. So therefore, we have to do things to enhance that. So now when this batter now goes into that position again, he or she can be optimally balanced as they play the stroke and keep their head still.
And that simply has to be part of the cricket plan.
For the future. And
I'm
thinking that what you do is complementary and not a challenge to anybody. So the jealousies need to be put aside. Because the science has come. Remember when analytics came into basketball and football in America, etc. What it did?
Everything,
the science. So you should be a welcome part of the future.
Let me ask you this, though. Let me ask you this. What really is needed now? Bangladesh, fine. Hooray. How do we harness this, Basil? With all that we just spoke about. How do we really harness this?
This is now, say for example, I answer the question as your question directly and it relates to what the other guy just said about being complementary. I am the person, or people like me can work both with the conditioning people, because we can design specific programs for a player based on the imbalances and how their brain is functioning. So they would strength train in a way that is upregulating their brain. And then on the other side, with the coaches, a player got technical problems, etc., etc. I now going to be looking at it through a different lens to help that player enhance his technique. So now the coach now will have a player, rather than taking zillions of hours trying to fix biomechanics, when it's not a biomechanical problem per se, it manifests as a biomechanical problem, but it's not a biomechanical problem. It could be something about that player's eyes, their balance, etc. Now, I would love to be able to bring this to cricket, particularly West Indies cricket, because I'm a West Indies cricket fan. So our guys would be able to overcome technical flaws or deficiencies or various things, and learn also, one of the things I can help them to is how to practice to be better, to be an elite athlete. A lot of these young players do not understand how to practice. Another thing a lot of them don't do neither is they do not deliberately put in recovery practices, right? So all of those things is what people like myself do that I could bring to help players, one, overcome technical difficulties and enhance their skill development, whether at the highest level or as a youngster coming through, and as well as give them principles and practice habits, recovery habits, and all those various things that will help them to be an elite athlete, which
Basil?
I think is something that is missing in the region.
Basil, quite revealing. We have time for you, but we don't have more time today. But thank you ever so much for joining us.
Thank you
We'll
so
be back
much.
with you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good, good,
Okay.
good, good. Remember to
Bye-bye.
share, subscribe,
Yes.
and support the program.
Okay,
Yes.
well, make sure you send me the link because I will definitely share it.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Basil.
Good, 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 good.
All right, take care. Have a good
Good.
afternoon.
Good.
Back into it.
Taking us to
What a
higher level-
moment.
higher levels.
All right. If horse racing parlance may be permitted, members of the sporting fraternity are now chomping at the bit for a return to competitive activity. Mindful of the increasing COVID-19 pandemic spike, there's still a call for restraint from some concerned quarters, which is being met by cries to compete because they insist it can be safely done. Dr. Winston Dawes, former president of the Medical Association of Jamaica, CEO of Mahogany Health and Fitness, and host of the popular radio program Doctor's Orders, waves the hand of caution. Dr. Dawes, what are your concerns? Yes, welcome to the program. What are your concerns?
Their concern is that if people do not follow the protocols which have been negotiated, they may end up, causing problems. Now, the thing is that we have not, throughout the country, we have not been following protocols. If you look at people out in the street, they're not wearing masks, they are up close to each other, and this is the best way to spread the vaccine. Now, if it is that you're going to allow some competitive sports with discipline, and the discipline would involve frequent testing, and everybody who is involved with it, if it's going to be administrators, officials, plus the athletes, and cutting back either no spectators or very few, and spectators also be expected to test and test negative, then we can allow it. But it can't be a free-for-all. The unfortunate thing, though, is that because we have not come up with a policy, people are taking things into their own hands, and we see people playing six-a-side football and,
But Doc, you're saying quite bluntly that we have not come up with a policy, and that is a part of the problem.
That's a part of the problem.
But some say we have a policy.
What's the policy?
We have some guidelines. Wear a mask, sanitize.
Yeah, I know, but when you're talking, if you're looking at the various sports, contact sports, football, which would be football, etc. People will be coming in close proximity with each other. Then you need to come up with something which will cut back on the risk of, spreading it. So in other words, frequent testing, like what they have in other countries, in Europe, where they have a bubble, which might be difficult in the Jamaican context, but they do frequent testing. And people are talking about that they're going to be traveling with people on public transportation, etc. But they're already doing it and going to the regular jobs.
Yeah.
And we've been having a problem in that youngsters are, getting depressed and they have various problems because they're not allowed any sport, any physical activity, quite apart from sports.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to get back some balance. And, if we're going to be past, say, having a track meet, instead of having it at one venue, they can have that 4 or 5 venues. And so the number of athletes at each venue would be limited. Mm-hmm. And that might allow them to be involved in some competition.
So you are saying that it can be done, but some strict rules that must be adhered to. Because people are pointing to know that in the society, people mingle, they mix at the supermarket, at the market, on buses, etc., etc. So what's up if 22 man run on a football field? Is that responsible?
No, well, the thing is this, that they have to be testing them on a regular basis.
But there's a problem of money. Can they afford it?
Well, can we afford not to?
Okay.
Right? We're spending a lot of money in other ways. I mean, I see we're going up with a $400 million campaign to tell people to use the vaccine.
Mm.
It's something we must understand that sports and physical activity are an important part of our lives. Mm-hmm. Right?
So what you're saying, there should be a push towards a near regularization of sporting activities.
Yes. Horse racing, which has been fairly disciplined. Granted, you don't have much in the way of spectators.
Some punters tell you that the horses don't catch COVID.
No. Any mammal,
but
bears, lambs, etc. have caught COVID.
Yes.
You're concerned though. The protocols, if followed, should make it possible. But if I'm hearing correctly, a main bugbear is returning to our respective communities.
That is a potential bugbear. But we already have people in the communities, we already have community spread. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that if the players knew that they were going to put themselves at risk, they would insist that their fans wear the mask and do the other things that they would not jeopardize them.
But a part of what you're saying, that they themselves must have the education and discipline to be controllers of themselves and others.
Which I'm sure they would. Because if they're given the opportunity to start earning something, they would not want to get caught out, going parties and doing all the other things that they might be tempted to do.
Marketing is always about how we feel and not necessarily what you tell us, right? So listening to you and knowing that the athletes want to compete, the footballers want to take the field, and you're saying, well, this should be what drives them to want to have the community around them, right? Mm-hmm. The respective communities around them take heed. So maybe we should be using our athletes in the very ads about vaccines and the very ads about the protocols that must be maintained. Since they ought to understand that if it is not contained, then clearly they can't take the field.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what's happening in cricket, with the other islands allowed some level of training, and the Jamaican team is being massacred.
Okay.
We're not competitive. Because our training is the match.
Okay.
Right.
And the other teams have been in training, so they have, they have the match experience, so they're outperforming us. Mm-hmm. They're not being even closely competitive in any match so far.
That and it is because you say that they are committed to the bubble, they are committed to the protocols being taken, and all of that.
No,
That's
no,
what.
no. No. What I'm saying is that we did not allow our team to practice.
To practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So-
that's good.
They're now down there. This is their practice, which unfortunately is a competitive match.
All right, you have outlined that the policy was a problem, and which may very well have been to be near non-existent. But also, the way the message has been spread doesn't speak well for a linear way of participating during COVID.
Yes, but I think Shelley and Fraser said it well. If we're going to abandon international sports, then we can continue to be, to restrict our sporting activities. If because we're asking athletes, and use that term loosely, to compete with other nationals who are allowing their teams to practice. And if it was, the proviso is, if it was that we were disciplined in our own selves and people were observing all the protocols, then we could say to the athletes, this is what we have to do.
But I can understand the government feeling caught in the middle. Damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah.
With the spike. Remember now, we are more than 7 days, and we'll take this up later on in the program, where the positivity rate is higher than 20%.
Gone near 30. But I think what Doc is saying, had it been regulated prior to, sports in an isolated way could have worked. Because look at the double standard. I saw on television, was it last night, where there was a full team in training said they did want to win champ because of a coach who was skilled. Did they have to get permission to be in training? And I'm certain other schools are doing the same. How has that been treated? And is that in the part of the mix as it relates to other sports in terms of football and track and field, where the Olympians need to be training on a daily basis?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. If it's going to be uniform, where people have to subject themselves to the rules, and this is for not just sportsmen, the average population, where you're having mask wearing within offices, you have social distancing, home office, all these things, then the sportsmen cannot claim that they are the exception. But if you're not adhering to all these other rules, you're then saying to the sportsman that you are special, you can't do anything.
All right.
And so, okay?
All right. So, what are you hoping for?
What I'm hoping for is, one, and I've been saying for a few months, that we must have a program where masks are provided to the general population, subsidized or free, because when you make the rule about masks and the people are wearing the same mask, disposable mask, for a week, then it is really serving no purpose. So, the government should subsidize for those who need it, or they could have an industry where they pre-cut the mask and then give it to people to sew and then, pay them. And for those who can't afford to buy the mask, we give it to them.
Tell me something, Doc. Have you been consulted about possible solutions to this problem, or is it that it's just a political decision which neglects the people who are in the know, the doctors, the other people who are close to the
I'm not sure, but I certainly have not been consulted.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, doing that, and then let us try and get the vaccine in as quickly as possible.
All right.
All
right. In fact, yes. In fact, we need to put this to you, Dr. Dawes. There is a listener, because we have advertised that you can post your questions as you watch, and you can also send your queries to the WhatsApp number 876-787-5873. So there's someone who is concerned whether the vaccine implants a chip in respective persons.
What's that?
No, believe me.
Conspire
I know you
and
have
answer
all
first.
these fake news.
No,
What
but
size chip?
can I say this?
Yeah,
Conspiracy theories, yay, nay. There are a number of persons
I know.
who are concerned about this, So this person,
I know.
this person may be
I think
asking
story
it being very genuine about.
No, I know, but if you follow, they say that Dr. Fauci was Bill Gates' roommate. No, Dr. Fauci is 80 and Bill Gates is in his 50s. And Bill Gates dropped out.
Bill Gates is a late bloomer, man.
Yes, Bill Gates
Right.
is a late
So I'm
bloomer.
saying, so he dropped out of university to get one of these computers.
So you're telling this listener to calm his or her fears. There's no such thing. There's no chip. No chip being implanted.
No.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Dawes. Right?
Sure.
Thanks
Yeah,
again for being on the program.
Good.
Good? Yes. Post your queries as you watch. Send your queries, WhatsApp also, to the number 876-787-5873. We will hear them. We'll discuss them. We'll chat. We'll be right back. Stratty,
Yeah.
we're back.
We're back, and guess who we have? The man who really has a strong view from the outset. He has been determined in putting this view forward. In fact, he came up with the thing, lives over livelihood.
Yes.
Yes. Doc, I don't want to call it a campaign because it's more than that. It's a real serious medical concern. Your thoughts about those who are saying, open up the country, open up sports, etc., etc. Is there a way that we could accommodate sports during this COVID situation?
Being very mindful of lives and livelihood.
Yeah, well, let me say something. First of all, you don't want to get this virus because we have no idea of the long-term effects of an infection, and we must remember that this thing is not endemic. It was brought here. So what New Zealand and other countries have done that have conquered this thing, and we must remember that, there are places that conquered COVID. First, they stop the people from coming in and just mingling. What to do, you come in, you are tested, And the treatment of COVID is to test, identify, isolate, and re-put back into circulation after the 14 days has passed. That is standard. We started out wrong in this country by only testing symptomatic people, which was a major error, when the whole world knew that this was being spread by asymptomatic people. So we had people coming in who were tested positive 2 or 3 days, tested negative 2 or 3 days before, went back into their community, buy things to come, mess up, talk to the family, and then come to Jamaica, where we let them in with a certificate that is 24, 48, 72 hours old, not knowing where they went after they did that test, and we have spread here.
And it has since been proven that you can catch the thing again.
Yes,
yeah.
and so we know all that. So that is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it that we are finding out now is that the more we are testing, the numbers are now in the 400s per day and so on. It's not that this thing is spreading, it's that we are now testing more. And that's where we are finding out the people that were there all along.
Why is it still been so that there is this spike and not really educating the people that it is causal to the fact that we are testing more? So it could have been very widespread even before now.
It suits the government to blame a spike and take the blame from themselves. Because remember, the treatment for this thing is test, identify, isolate, treat, and then 14 days you bring back. We have not been doing that. And now we're saying there's a spike, and we're pointing fingers at, which is true, our indiscipline and our refusal to wear masks, or refusal to social distance, or refusal to do this thing. So what they do is that they deflected the blame from themselves and put it back on us, when it was their job in the beginning to do the thing. Now, people talk about sports overseas that is going on and is successful. It is in a bubble. This sport is in a bubble where the people involved in the sport are tested before they perform in the sport, are tested regularly in the sport, and most importantly, Stratton Curtis, they are not allowed to mix. Not even with the people who are serving food, not even with the people who are around them. Everybody who is involved in that bubble has to be negative, and that way you minimize the contact. We want to bring back sports where you don't have to test everybody, because we say the government said we just don't afford it, the association don't afford it. We allow the people to come in and play, and then go back into their community where the thing is endemic, and come back to play again the following day, or the following week, or the following 2 or 3 days. That cannot work. And once we understand that, and we take COVID serious, then we'll only get on top of it, and not taking it serious. And we are looking now and talking about how unfair it is to athletes. And of course it is somewhat unfair to these athletes. But gentlemen, this is a war. And we have to then everybody sacrifice until we get the vaccination or herd immunity.
But another major point to what you just said, Doc. Even if they are allowed to play, and some will catch it during their adventure, etc., what we don't know up to this point is how will it affect those individuals a couple of years hence.
Remember, we had a national long-distance runner who came on national television, I think it's a week ago. He said, athletes, I caught the flu. Instead of waiting till the flu was better, I continued training, and I had a cardiac arrest, because I had myocarditis. The virus affected the muscle of my heart, and I had an inflammation. I nearly died. This is a virus. You have no idea where it is going to lodge and what inflammation it is going to cause, and you are going to run into problems later on in life after you get this COVID, after you're tested positive for COVID. So any athlete who has tested positive or who wants to compete, take a test, and if you are positive, you wait until the thing passes, and then you do ECGs on a 6-weekly basis to make sure that you don't have any abnormality in your heart, because sudden death while competing is a reality, and most of the time it is caused by not only a congenital abnormality, which you can pick up, but by inflammation of the heart muscle, which is a myocarditis, which is what our long-distance
Dr. Paul Wright, sports medicine specialist who you are.
Yes, sir.
Give me hope. Give me something. Tell me something I need to hear. I am the athlete, right? Wanting to get back into training, competition. My life is falling, crumbling in front of me. Sports medicine specialist, give me hope.
Number one, the government has got to realize that these athletes, especially those who perform for a living, are in some serious economic difficulties. So you've got to have an economic handout. And I'm saying that plainly. You have to help these people during this time when they cannot compete, they cannot go international and all that. Number one. Number two, you stay fit, but you stay in your own environment, in your own personal little bubble until vaccination and herd immunity is here. Which, folks, let me tell you this, I don't expect that until 2022. And that is the only thing we can do. We have to understand the illness, understand the economic deprivation that we're going to do, and we say to the government, instead of spending $400 million on an advertising campaign, take some of that money and help athletes who, because their livelihood is athletics or sport, and they're not able to perform, they need something. Because they're going to be forced now to go behind the doors and through the back door to compete. And that is going to cause more spread and more problems to the athletes in the long term.
You're also asking me, as athlete, to be a model of compliance, because I have to create my own little bubble to keep myself safe to be able to play, right?
Yes.
But you're also mindful, and I say this tongue in cheek, that a number of our athletes like to be at the parties too, like to go all over the place too. You can't say
the reason for that is indiscipline. It's indiscipline. And those indisciplined athletes don't do well. When we look at the great athletes of our time, and we have some very great Jamaican athletes, the discipline that they had while they were competing is what made them great. And the indiscipline, what happened in Curtis and Strat is that because of our multi-generic background, we are extremely talented from a physical point of view. We are extremely talented. I believe that we are gifted when we look at our population and what we do in the world when it comes to athletic prowess in whatever sport. We are gifted. And because of that gift and the indiscipline that is inherent among the majority of our people, that is cause for concern. And that is where we have to now start a program to help them financially and to insist that the protocols are observed.
You are saying to us that medically you play at your own risk. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
No,
and you should know your risk could be your life.
Right. And then you move now, or let us move to the professional athletes, the Olympian, the ones who are training because there might be Olympics in Japan in a couple months' time.
Yes.
And they are saying that they should be getting ready. The world is doing so. But is it an equal situation that the world is training in a particular environment? Do we have that the same year, and can we create that here, and how it should be treated by the government?
We don't have that environment, and we have to realize that. And the only reason why we don't have the environment, and we know this government and every other government bends over backwards to help athletes, is that the finances are there. It is a financial burden to get everything in place to help athletes to compete in a bubble and to move about in a bubble. And with air transport now being banned all over the country, most countries now are stopping people from coming into their country because they have to protect their people. We are probably one of the very few countries in the world who keep inviting people here, even people who are coming from COVID intense areas. And we just have to stop that.
You just said words to the effect that our athletes are in need of the sort of consideration for special socioeconomic support, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You have been, and I know you, like myself, your voice has timbre, and when you clamor, it's heard, right?
Yeah.
What's this sort of, what's this?
Doc, how you make the man say you're a loudmouth?
Because it's true.
And all I'm saying, Doc, is like myself. So you know what I mean. So let me ask you this. I know you have been drumming this, right? Nice to hear it on this program, but I'm sure, nice to hear it on the program, but I'm sure you have been drumming this. What sort of response you getting? Anybody will take you on, Dr. Wright?
No, absolutely not. Because what they're saying is that there are you, a non-athlete, telling me, the athlete, about the problems I am going through. That is the feeling that is going on.
Who's an athlete, Doc? Because you're a footballer, you're a hockey player.
No, but I mean, you're saying in terms of a response from the government. To what you're proposing.
As I asked,
anybody's taking you on with it?
Dr. Dawes before, as to whether he was consulted.
Hang on 1 second, Strat. Yeah. Anybody at all?
No, absolutely not. But every time, all I want you to do is listen to the Minister of Sport and anybody from Dr. Wilton and from the SDF. They talk the talk. They just don't walk the walk.
Yes,
but to your certain knowledge, or you might be hearing through the grapevine, how much of the government's decision is informed by serious medical, let's put another way, serious non-partisan medical input?
Absolutely none. And when you look at what had happened to our COVID response, they were listening to medics who were academics. They had no talk with anybody who was in a clinic or in an emergency room, and get those people, meet with them on a monthly, bi-monthly, something like that, and because we saw this coming, and we kept telling the people who are advising the government, doctors like ourselves, colleagues, that this thing is wrong. And what they do is that trot out some academic things. I would say, I have seen these people. And what has been happening is that we see the people with all the signs and symptoms. You can't get them tested. We send them to the place where they're supposed to be tested. Before they're tested, they die. And I say, see another day. Them say, no, that man died from heart failure. And that is suppressing the association between death and COVID. And that is what people believe is not a serious thing.
Let me ask you something that might be troubling. Well, it certainly is. You are there, you are seeing the persons, you are seeing the signs. Our athletes, sportsmen and women, they're being infected with COVID. What's happening? Anything to worry about just yet? Collectively?
No, nothing to worry about as yet, because any athlete that I see with a sign of COVID, I couldn't get them tested because we were not testing people unless they had a high temperature, cough, or breathing difficulties. Those were the criteria that were being used. And if you don't satisfy those criteria, you couldn't get a COVID test. Now, if you are economically feasible, with $22,000 for one test or $6,500 for a test that is only positive if you are symptomatic, then we see more and more people going privately to get these tests in order to A, continue working in an environment, or B, to travel. Because the real test is extremely important, and the government, we want them to do is to allow people with a very subsidized rate to get the test that can test asymptomatic people and find out if they have it, not the antigen test that is only going to be positive if you are symptomatic.
All right, so just let me say this. Nobody now take you on. So let's picture this. Let's say there's a change of heart. Eh?
Yes.
And as government and all the relevant authorities, you're called tomorrow, along with other colleagues, to tell your side of the story and to make your own, to present your own proposals.
Observations.
And observations, eh? And to giving you a chance to provide solutions. What are you going to tell them?
Exactly what I told you on this program. I've been on CVM, I've been on gospel radio, I've been all over the place trying to get this thing across, that we are going about it in one way, and what we have to do is to understand that this is a serious thing and take it seriously. You guys are up and down all over the place. You see people up and down in Kingston wearing masks or social distancing. You ever look inside a taxi or look inside a bus? It's a joke business. Nobody's taking this thing seriously. And we have got to get the soldiers, the police, and even some medical, not medical people, some people who call cadets or something,
one
to
day
tell
police.
people that you have, one day police, you have to social distance, you have to wear a mask. You can't have the mask under your chin walking up and down all over the place, and the only time you put it on is when you enter the shop.
Doc,
That can't work.
Doc, I'm thinking that the sooner we realize that this is not a political problem, it's a medical problem, then we'll begin to get the answers that are deserving.
In other words, Stratton, like I put it, your thing in other words. Once we make the science guide us, the science of the doctor in the trenches, the ones in the clinics, the ones in the emergency room, the ones who are seeing people.
And not the little man, and not the little man on top of the hill.
No, not the academic who has all the 5,000 degrees, but don't understand what is happening on the ground.
No, the little man who tell us you must walk and make 5 steps this way and 10 steps that way. Not that man either, but the little man on the hill. Give some powder thing and all that sort of thing.
You know that sort of thing. I always tell people, You remember they built a bridge in Yalas?
Yes.
And there was a little man and a donkey who tell them if them bridge the bridge here, it will wash away.
Yes.
And the man point out to him that he have 5 different degrees and he is an engineer.
Yeah.
You know what happened to that bridge 2 years later? It washed away. The man and the donkey. And that is the people we must listen to. We must listen to those people.
But I have a better one than that, Doc. You know the underpass that they have in the backside areas?
Yeah, man.
The truck was going underneath one time with backside and got stuck. And they sent 5 engineers over the factory and they were saying we should take off the bridge or dig out the road and resurface. And a man with 2 ampere Yama pass. I said, what happened? They said the bridge stuck. And said, let out some of the air tight tire, drive it out and pump it up back.
Listen to those people. I was watching a documentary recently about the Prime Minister, the lady Prime Minister, and I stress the lady Prime Minister of New Zealand. You know what her secret is?
Yes.
Listening to people.
Yes.
That's all, you know. That's all it takes. Stop listening to people with these whole pedigrees who not on the ground, and there are doctors on the ground who have been telling these people that we are going the wrong way. And we still have a chance, and hopefully we'll take it.
All right.
A pleasure.
Thank you
very
so much, Dr. Ryan.
That's my pleasure again. Thank you.
Good.
As always with Dr. Wright in Stratton,
Yeah.
is a man who will not hold his tongue.
Yes.
And he's telling you exactly that if we want to play sports, if we want to get going in terms of the various competitions, right?
Yes.
So that we don't end up with the, having to use the competition as practice matches. If we do enter, there are particular things that we must do. And we must listen to the scientists, and we must deal with the protocols, because it's either that or really nothing at all.
Because even if we get back to playing sports, there's something which we must understand, that we play at our own risk.
Risk, yes.
Because there are conditions which should spring up in a couple of months' time, with heart conditions, etc., etc.
And all sort of maladies.
Yes.
We're still on the subject of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? And the fear that now persists is simply this: are we at breaking point? Can our health sector buckle? And given our positivity rate of 20 and over for the last 7 days, should we now be contemplating a complete lockdown? You know, it's not fear running away with us, you know. It's particular concerns that have to be raised. We're here now with Dr. Alverston Bailey, clinical toxicologist and professor of occupational health and safety at the University of Technology. Dr. Bailey, do you share our concerns?
Well, interestingly, I must perhaps remind you that I'm really described as associate professor.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Now, yes, I do, because we're looking at a crisis that has basically become a reality. Now, what has happened is that we have been noticing a significant change in the epidemiology of COVID-19 for quite a few months now. And to put things in perspective, let's look, say, at the death rate per week. Up to the middle of September, we had a weekly death rate of roughly 1.7 persons per week. From September to the present, we have been seeing a gradual increase in the total number of deaths per week, moving from 1.7, then it went to 10, then it went to 15, and now we're looking at roughly 20 to 25 deaths per week. That's a significant movement in the wrong direction. With respect to positivity rates, that is interesting, in that we have been seeing a gradual increase in the positivity rates. For example, in December, the average positivity rate was 9. Then in January, it was approximately 10 to 11. And since February, it has moved to 15, then to 20. One day last week, it reached 31, and today it was 22. So we have noted now a significant increase in positivity rate, to the point where for over 1 week we have been persistently higher than 20%. Now, the World Health Organization actually has advised that the acceptable positivity rate for any country to be comfortable is under 5. Any positivity rate over 5 means that some stringent measures should be put in place in order to bring it back to below 5. Now, another person have been wondering, what does positivity rate mean as far as COVID-19? It means it's a marker of community spread. So if in fact we have an average positivity rate for the past, say, 7 days of 20, it means that 2 out of every 10 persons that have been tested are positive, or 20 out of every 100 persons tested is positive. It means that we have a significant community spread taking place.
And just, if I may just say this, you derive the rate by dividing the number of cases by the number of tests, no?
Absolutely. Okay. What we look at is the number of tests done.
Right.
We look at the total number of cases that are found to be positive. divided by the total number of tests done. And so that is how we arrive at the positivity, multiplied by 100.
100, yes, as a
That is how
percentage, yes.
right, we arrive at the positivity. Now, not only then have we seen a significant increase in positivity, we have also observed a significant run on our hospitals. And the truth is, Mandeville was at a crisis level a few days ago where they ran out of beds.
They
We
were
were
up
advised,
to what, 84% capacity?
yes, absolutely. We were advised actually by a representative from Cornwall Regional Hospital yesterday that they have 26 COVID beds and that they have 40 patients for the 26 beds. The question arose, where are they going to put those other patients? And so they are now desperately trying to find appropriate accommodation for those other patients that can no longer be accommodated in the COVID facility. This means that we have a problem. And that the fear that we've always had, that we will have a run on our hospitals, which will exhaust the facilities that were put in place, that reality has now arrived.
But let me
And
ask,
so,
but
yeah.
let me ask you, because you know, the more the spike, whether it is because we're doing more tests, but you know, you start asking almost in a panic sometimes, where the vaccines, because you note it's being done in Cayman, it's being done in Barbados, you hear of it in the Turks and Caicos. What is happening here to the vaccination program? And and the two, we always go to the National Housing Trust for particular programs that must be sustained. Is it so far-fetched to be going, knocking on the doors of the Housing Trust, to be getting vaccines now wherever possible, right? Shouldn't we also, and I'm just, they keep running through my head, shouldn't we be taking all these questions, shouldn't we be taking the whole issue of a united CARICOM front, right? Yes, we know we have the COVAX arrangement.
And there's a plan afoot recently that a group of islands will get together.
Yeah, but shouldn't we all be getting together now as CARICOM, also see so that we're pooling funds to buy the vaccines? Because hey, this thing with all the variants might be galloping ahead of the vaccination program.
All right, let me put things in perspective.
Yes.
We have to face some uncomfortable truths. We are now faced with severe community spread and with a run on our hospitals. We have two options three options actually, that we have to contemplate. One is to allow the virus to continue to circulate in the community and develop herd immunity over a period of time. The reality of that, if we do that, 2% of all persons, 2 to 3% of all persons infected will die. Are we prepared to accept the death of up to 20,000 Jamaicans? I don't think so.
No, we are not.
The other option then is to ramp up vaccination. So herd immunity or vaccination is the only way we'll be able to contain this virus. And therefore, the option that we now have to address is to get the vaccination into our arms as quickly as possible before the community spread moves to 30, 40, or 50%. Now, the question you asked was about how can we access funds in order to procure the virus, because we know countries with deep pockets have bought more than enough vaccines. And so therefore, it must be a question of resources that will inform our capacity to purchase vaccines. COVAX will be giving us 16% of what we need. There's another 84% of the population that will be left unvaccinated. I did mention in another media that we need to consider a quote-unquote COVID fund, which will be funded by the National Health Fund and most importantly, by the National Housing Trust, and also with contribution from the private sector, so that we can have a significant bolus of funds available to purchase vaccine from whichever source makes them available to us. Because if we do not ramp up vaccination, the community spread will accelerate, and we're going to move from 20 to 30 to 40% more positivity. And our hospitals just cannot cope with the increased influx of ill patients, and regretfully, we are going to see more deaths.
But in the short run, though, Doc, the vaccination will just be a governor of the rate of spread, because it will take how many years to really vaccinate a sufficient, which is about 70% of the population. In Jamaica's case, how long will it take to reach that 70%?
Well, actually, if you actually listen, watch what's happening in the US, they plan to vaccinate all Americans by July.
July, they claim.
Yeah, so therefore, it won't take years. It will just take cash and coordination and commitment in order to. Now, the thought though, and I must tell you, the thought behind the 16% is to prevent hospitalizations and deaths. So if we can in fact vaccinate a significant number of the persons over 65, if we can vaccinate a lot of the first line workers, the front line workers rather, like the doctors, the nurses, the police officers.
Who are getting sick? Who are getting sick?
Right, right. In fact, over 500 have been infected so far. So if we can vaccinate those persons, if we can vaccinate the elderly and those with comorbidity, then we will significantly reduce the influx of persons into hospitals, and we will reduce that while we are trying to acquire more of the vaccines for other persons, especially the teachers. And now I hear the taxi drivers say they want to be vaccinated too.
What about, Doc, the fact that previous to now, we are saying it only affected a certain age group? You mentioned comorbidities yesterday, a short while ago. But what about people who are in a younger age category, who are also now seem to be susceptible?
Before we go there, I want him to just finish addressing the whole issue of the possible pool of funds. Yes, from the quarters that you have identified for Jamaica, but I'm back at you with pooling resources as a CARICOM unit to be able to get more vaccines.
I totally agree with you. And I think that our argument or that discussion is now taking place because we're going to have to. We have to protect ourselves because we need to get our citizens vaccinated and healthy in order to rescue the tourism industry. Because I was told, in fact, by an hotelier that soon the travel agency will be asking, are your staff vaccinated? As a criteria for them to return to Jamaica. Therefore, the need for vaccination, especially to save the tourism industry, is now urgent. And so all CARICOM countries must get together, pool funds to purchase vaccine that has been found to be safe and effective, and start vaccinating our citizens as quickly as possible.
Yes, about the transference now of the virus in terms of who it can infect. Younger age groups are now being brought into the picture, isn't that so?
Absolutely. Now, what you're faced with, which really is a most unfortunate situation, is that the virus is now mutating. And so the virus has now been described as an escape mutant. And we have seen that with the South African variant, in that it is resistant to the AstraZeneca vaccine. We had the Kent mutant in England, and now we also have the Brazilian mutant, and I understand we now have a Nigerian mutant. So the virus is actually as almost developed what I have described as an artificial intelligence. It senses that the vaccines are coming for it, and it is mutating. And so because it is mutating, it is more transmissible. So the perception that we had that the parent variant only primarily affected the elderly and those with comorbidity is now being changed because the variants or the mutants.
But the AstraZeneca vaccines are what we are procuring, aren't we?
Yes. However, let me
You're advising that.
let me respond to that.
Yes.
Yes.
I see where you're coming. now, now, the AstraZeneca vaccine was about 70% effective. Now, the WHO just last week has indicated that it should still be used because the the variants have not yet displayed sufficient um, intuitiveness to avoid the vaccine. What I heard a scientist say, if you think of the spikes protein as equivalent to your 5 fingers, if and you are going to attack those 5 fingers, if one finger is lost, you still have four left to attack. So therefore, the fact that you still have 4 fingers on hand meant that it can still be grabbed by the vaccine and so the effectiveness has been reduced somewhat, but it is still effective. And I must tell you that the flu vaccine is only 50% effective and it's still being used widely around the world. And the AstraZeneca vaccine was more effective than the flu vaccine. And the Pfizer was 95% effective. So what you're saying, with the Pfizer Moderna vaccine, even if the mutant reduces effectiveness to about 80%, it's still good.
Are we in a little dilemma, Doc? Because yes, there's funding which is needed for the vaccination, yes? But do we have sufficient funds to even do the kind of testing that we need to? And there are competing interests for scarce funding. How do we apportion?
Yeah, that is a challenge. We really are strapped for funds, for testing, and for acquiring the reagents. What has happened though is that the government has done what they should have done a long time ago, is by inviting the private sector to get involved in testing. And as more and more members of the private sector who have the capital to invest get involved in testing, the burden of responsibility from the government will be reduced. Because I'm fairly convinced that since they opened up testing a few weeks ago, we have seen a significant increase in the number of tests that have been done. And so with involvement of the private sector into testing by accredited labs, I think that particular problem will be significantly reduced in the near future.
Is there an understanding though that there will be minimal addition to the base price? Seeing that it's going into the private sector, and will it be a free for all that you bid for your profitability?
It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge because I know, and I know someone who actually has acquired the antigen test, and he said they're horribly expensive, and to maintain the PCR testing machine and the reagents is also very expensive. But there are many persons who are willing to pay a reasonable price to get a test as quick as possible, So therefore, I don't think it's going to be a major problem. And of course, those who can't afford the test in the private domain can actually try and access it in the public domain.
The government says, let me hold my tongue. The government says we're not there yet. Though some of us are saying that the positivity rate over 6 days, which is being used as a yardstick to lock down various parishes, might now have to be considered for the whole island. With all the problems with available beds and so on, they say we're not there yet. What is to prevent us from being there soon if the positivity rate keeps increasing?
I think the government is faced with a dilemma. And the positivity rate that was traditionally used as a red line was around 20%. And that was used in Manchester, it was used in Cornwall Court and other areas. Since the whole country now is displaying a high positivity rate, the dilemma has become even more profound. And I think they're really worried about the economic impact of at least a short-term shutdown. They're worried about that. And I have been thinking about this, and I'm wondering if the government is really hoping that once the vaccines have arrived, that the positivity rate
Will
will
come
then begin
down.
to fall, and so that I think they have decided that
Wishful
at least
thinking.
for a few more days, I think they decided let's weather the storm until the vaccine arrives.
And when are the
Recognize it,
vaccines coming?
they should be arriving by the end of this month. So I think this let us weather the
And
storm.
by the end
Let
of
us
this month, you will have more private sector assistance on board. CARICOM will come together as it ought to be coming together as a unit, as one pool, procuring pool, and all of that. Will we be fitting all the pieces together, Dr. Bailey, or am I hallucinating?
Well, I think based on what's happening now, that the urgency of the situation will demand that the proposals you made be put in place urgently, because the the challenge the health sector is faced with right now is that they really are overwhelmed with cases, and they really do not have sufficient isolation wards to put the patients, and subsequently they will have to be placed in the field hospitals, which I gather can only accommodate 133, and so we'll have a mushrooming of cases, and so the system might collapse unless appropriate measures are put in place to prevent this. So I think we hope that by the time the vaccine arrives, that it will cause a significant decrease in positivity rate. But for the meantime, as I said, the government is battening down and is weathering the storm.
Doctor, thanks a lot.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
It has been
All the best.
eye-opening.
Associate Professor, I'm sorry.
Good. Thank
Thank you
you
very
very much. And
All
before
the
we
best.
go, to close this segment, remember to share, remember to subscribe, and support the program by contributing to the Cash App $Real Chat. Make we continue to chat right after this break.
Yes.
Eye-opening and revealing.
Yes.
All the comments by Dr. Bailey. And we should learn more from Dr. Alfred Dawes, noted surgeon, former president of the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association, founder, ILAP Medical, and the media and the social commentator. And he's gathering storm. Dr. Dawes.
Hey, how you doing?
Very good.
We are here and we are concerned. We're concerned because we don't need eyeglasses to see that the health sector can buckle under the weight of the pandemic.
Indeed, it can.
With a positivity rate now going on 7 days of more than 20.
Mm-hmm. Well, initially the concern was that we weren't testing enough, because the numbers that we were putting out in terms of testing, a few hundred, 50, less than 100 per day, that would not have picked up on a lot of persons. So with the increase in the number of testing, we expect that more people would test positive. But because you're doing more tests, we also expected the positivity rate to go down, because you would have picked up a lot more negatives. The fact that you're picking up so many positives, it clearly means that this thing is way, way beyond what we imagined. But further than that, because it's not just the numbers, I never like to look at the raw numbers. From the beginning, I've always preached, look at what is happening in the hospitals.
Okay.
So even when the numbers were starting to go up and people are like, it's over 100 and it's over 200 and it's over 1,000. the hospitals were not having a lot of admissions. Even after we had community spread, we still were not seeing a lot of pressure on the hospital. So I was not worried. Now I'm starting to worry because that hospital curve is starting to get steep. A lot of beds are being filled up in hospitals all over the island. And it is at this point when we should start to be concerned and start to look at more rigorous ways of controlling the spread of the virus and apply more rigid controls because the population is simply not adhering to what they need to do to stem the tide.
And what are some of those rigorous ways and rigorous controls?
Well, I mean, for example, I went to Portland recently and nobody was wearing. I saw probably about 5 masks in the entire parish, and they were on people's chins. When you pass through some rural communities, they're still having parties. Uptown people are having their parties as well, secret, and it's as if nothing is going on, and nobody believes that it can happen to them. We need greater enforcement. We need to have a mandatory mask policy in place right now because masks, believe it or not, play a huge part in controlling the spread of the virus because we do know that this is a droplet spread infection. It's not just on surfaces. On surfaces is much less than droplets floating around in the air. And if you can control the droplets at the source before as they come out of your mouth, then you're going to decrease the chance of circulating droplets spreading the infection. We also need to look at opening windows and using less AC. A friend of mine was telling me that where he worked, almost all of the person who tested positive worked inside, and the people outside who were working outside didn't want to mingle with them. And it was one of some sort of anomaly, but we do have a lot of evidence to show that the virus spreads a lot more indoors. So we are a tropical country. If you look back on the old colonial buildings, the hospitals, etc., all of them were built to take advantage of the ventilation.
Natural ventilation.
We have lots of everything.
Yeah, you indicated earlier that a serious indicator for you now would be the amount of people who are hospitalized, so much so that you are bursting at the seams. Is it a departure from your earlier statement that the virus is not as, how should I put it?
Not as deadly?
Yes.
Well, it still is not as deadly, but the fact is that we don't have the capacity to deal with the sick. So you're not seeing, even if you look at the curve, you are seeing a sharp increase in the number of infected curves. So if you're looking at, say, the active infections at the start of February, so where we are now, we are seeing a 100% increase in 2 weeks. We're not seeing a corresponding 100% increase in the number of deaths. The death curve is still fairly flat. When the death curve is going to go up is if the hospitals get overwhelmed, and it's not just COVID that is COVID patients that are going to die. It's persons who are suffering from the heart attacks and those who may have pneumonia or heart failure causing entire shortness of breath, and people are waiting on COVID results before they touch them. Or the A&E departments are clogged up, seeing patients with respiratory illnesses. That's when you're going to have an increase in the number of deaths year on year, whether or not it's related to COVID. But the virus itself still is not as deadly in Jamaica as it is in temperate climate. But the hospitalization, we cannot afford to get the hospitalization up any further now.
Speak to us, therefore, of the impact to the people in the trenches. We understand that you may have about 4 or so doctors who would have passed away as a result, a nurse here and there, and other people who are then being affected. And then you hear of doctors who should be getting hazard pay, not getting it on time. What kind of impact that have on the whole movement of how we treated this thing?
What I can tell you is that morale is low.
It has to be.
In speaking with a lot of the junior doctors and nurses on the front line in the trenches, they are overworked. And remember, if you
have a shortage of staff already, and then every couple of days you have different people getting sick and out being isolated, and everybody being exposed, being quarantined.
And,
You're never at 100% capacity
Mhm.
to
and,
deal with the influx of patients coming in.
and,
So
I'm,
you're overworked.
and I'm also hearing that there's some interns who might still not have been paid and
Yeah,
not
the
have
hazard pay.
gotten their license. It's buzzing about.
Um, well, I do know there are doctors who are out there awaiting internship spots. I don't know if it is a case where the money is not there or it is the accreditation for the facilities, because internship is a part of training. And one of the issues I came across when I was trying to increase the number of interns at Savlaman Hospital was that you have to have a ratio of senior doctors to junior doctors, and you must have a corresponding number of beds to interns to say that the training program is adequate, because you don't want to bring somebody without adequate supervision and then after a year they're unleashed on an unsuspecting public without having learned the proper way. They've just been winging it over the year because everybody has just been overwhelmed and they are just bodies in the field. At the end of the day, interns are still undergoing training and they must be supervised. So we're going to have limitations with respect to human resources, and I think that is our biggest challenge. Even beyond interns, critical care nurses are who I'm worried about, because ICU trained nurses these are not people you can just stick on in a ward that you have created new ICU bed spaces and you have put in a ventilator. No, it requires years of training. It requires them having the knowledge to recognize when something is wrong with the patient. It's not just to look at the machine and record. This is why our nurses are well trained, which is why they are well sought after by the first world countries. And it's unfortunate that we have been losing our best nurses. As soon as they finish training, the recruiters are outside waiting for them. They buy out their bonds, they relocate their entire family, give them car, house, settlement bonuses, etc. And the government just cannot compete with that. And you cannot tell people that they must sacrifice their personal and their family's welfare to serve the country. I mean, it's noble if they do, and the ones who stay, we really laud them, but we can't tell them that they can't go if they get an offer to go to greener pastures. But what that leaves us with is a lot of ICU beds and ventilators without people to man them, and we can't ramp up production of the nurses that easily. So that is what the limiting factor is, the bottleneck in the provision of care.
But these very challenges, these deficiencies, don't they impact as well what is going to be an effective vaccination program?
Well,
Isn't
different skill sets.
Right.
You have to look at the critical care. What we ought to be doing is a two-pronged approach. One, you have to get the ICU spaces fully outfitted, get the human resources component there, where you have the doctors and you have the nurses as well to adequately take care of those patients. On the other hand, you need to have these frontline workers vaccinated, and you need to, so that you have less of them succumbing to more serious illness and being out of the workforce. Less likely chance of getting infected with the moderate to severe form of the disease, and you can have them actually going out and performing their activities with little fear of the virus. So the vaccine program must target the frontline workers, and then it must target those who are more likely to get severe disease. Because one of the things that we keep looking at is as if the vaccine is a silver bullet, and if it's not, the vaccine will not completely stop you from getting COVID. It will in some
Lessen.
cases do that, but it will lessen the chance of you getting a severe form of the disease.
Right.
And that is what we need more than anything else. Because if you can convert COVID into a disease where when you get the disease, it's a bad flu.
All right. Just a
Then
quick question, Doc. We are
you don't have to worry about
almost on time. We have spoken to a couple of doctors today and in other programs. Is there a consensus position based on the people out in the trenches, the clinical people, in terms of relaying information to the government, which will help them to form better policies?
Well, that's a better question for the head of the organizations that represent the doctors. I wouldn't speak on behalf of the MHA, of which I'm a member.
Yes.
You know, make him draw your tongue.
Well, I've learned to reserve.
Yeah. All right, Doc.
But I do know that there are recommendations from the government, and it's the duty of the executive to represent of their members. So I suspect that is along that road.
All right. Thanks, Doc.
All right, Doc. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Good. Real
take
chat.
a break, yes?
Yeah.
And I've made my appeal yet. Remember to share, subscribe, and support the program by contributing to the Cash App, Real Chat.
Back again with Real Chat. And we have been having a lot of, what do you call it? Big chat?
Big chat. Big chat.
Big chat. Yeah? Big chat about cricket. Big chat about the COVID. Big chat, we are coming again to the issue of abortion. The debate continues to be intense, and the various contending points, positions, and the parties could be described at times as combative. Discussing abortion is often quite testy. There is this critical question we must keep asking. Is the issue simply just one that's black and white? Or are there crucial mixed colors of compassion that must be painted on a complex social background? We continue our chat with Bishop Alvin Bailey, Vice President, Jamaica Association of Evangelicals. Welcome again, Bishop Bailey.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here.
So we have kept our word.
Yes. I have a saying that says the measure of a man is determined by how well he keeps his word.
Yes, we have kept our word because we promised you last week that we would return with you, right?
Yeah, sure, thanks.
This whole issue of compassion, this whole issue of men speaking aloud and as if almost alone about what should be voices too that we hear from a woman. This whole issue of churches, men of the cloth, being sometimes unduly strident and almost blinded by their ideology and doctrines without any concern. And it's from some quarter about what might be happening to the woman herself. What's your response?
No, I think the church has really been very, very cognizant of all the arguments and all the matters as it relates to abortion. In fact, it is really a matter of kill or not kill. Abortion is strictly a matter of killing the unborn or not killing the unborn. And
that's simply it.
It is simply it.
Nothing in between.
And there's nothing in between. It is either killing the unborn, innocent unborn, or not killing the unborn. Every other reason, we can find an alternative. Every other reason is reversible. That killing of that unborn child is irreversible, insensitive, inhumane, and it's draconian. In fact, it has no place in our contemporary time and society, I would say. Not in this time, when modern science are finding alternatives to just about everything. Sociologists are finding answers to everything. And we are talking about killing innocent children and making it legal. Listen, I think we just need to change the whole scenario.
I won't take issue with you, Rev, but in terms of the modernity of things, where you say sociologists, etc., have come a long way. The fact is that we have seen social situations which are not being corrected, and we are up in arms about what is happening in the society now, almost an uncontrollable position, because, as Myrie said, a lot of them were possibly, I put it in their term, unwanted children.
Just give me the examples and I'll address them. Look at this. Look at that. Murder is on the increase, and the kind of draconian murders that we are seeing now is unprecedented.
Yes.
But we will not bring back hanging to the table.
Yes.
And execution to the table. Because we are really in a more enlightened day and age. Right. How much more can we be
and you are
about?
saying that the church is saying that we should not bring back hanging as part of the treatment.
Of course. I'm totally against hanging. And I'm saying I'm totally against abortion. And
there are many in the society who would want us to hasten to bring it back. Yes. What do you say to them?
I am aware of the voices, just like how there are other voices who are saying, yes, commit abortion. But the reasons for wanting to hold on to abortion or to hold on to murder, certainly murder one hasn't stood up, and abortion must not stand up either.
Yeah, but what about the voices that say, it's not that I'm really pro-abortion, It is that I'm pro-choice.
No.
The rights of the individual.
That is also one of the escape routes about pro-choice. Not a matter of pro-choice. Of course, I think as intelligent being, one of the highest privileges God has given to us is the ability to choose. But it is not the freedom to do what you want to do. We all operate in an environment where there are limitations. Yes. And one of the limitations we have is to observe with regard to human life. Is the sanctity of the human life.
Yes. There's a limitation. I am not about to bring back, Curtis, the whole thing of people who are non-believers, because you operate on a particular terrain. And some people are saying that the church could at best be a moral signpost, not a law unto itself. Your views?
A non-believer or a believer enjoy the privilege of life, and that person would not be prepared for somebody to take their life.
A non-believer or a believer enjoys the privilege of choice.
Of life. Of life. No, life. Nobody's killing it. Well, nobody is choosing to let me take my life in the interest of some of these what are seeming to be goals and aspirations. And so, I mean, there's really no argument to this. I mean, and it's not only Christians alone that are saying no to abortion. It is indeed a quick fix to what we know are some social and socioeconomic problems that we're having. And what we are doing is causing the unborn children to pay the price.
And the problems of abuse, the problems of rape.
All right.
Are there limitations to what a woman may endure?
All right.
And can endure?
All right. Let us look at.
What about the scars that perhaps will never heal?
The unfortunate situation of rape. 3 persons are involved.
The criminal situation of rape.
Criminal man, that man who is a criminal, that child who is innocent, and the mother who is unfortunate. What we do, instead of holding the man accountable we kill the child, sentence that child to death, and we in fact subject that mother to less than acceptable means of rehabilitation, and then we let the man go free almost.
What is the possible solution? Have that woman take the baby to term and give it away rather than abort it?
In fact, it is proven that a person who does abortion is 6 times more likely to commit suicide. And when you look at all the statistics, including those of counseling a mother, and she either keeps that child and sometimes she have accepted it as we have no experience, or give it up for...
But argumentatively, you may look at it so rare. But do you put yourself in the place of a woman who is raped by a complete stranger?
Look here, right? I don't have to... I've had to empathize with many of those cases. I'm saying to you that in
all raped cases, by her family member.
But you are not that person.
No,
whilst you may interact with and counsel, you are not the person who have gone through that experience.
And I would say to you, yes, but I'm also saying to you that practically is a double trauma that we are dealing with to that mother. A double trauma that she'll have to live with, not only the fact that she has terminated her pregnancies. And let me tell you, friend, there are some things that we normally don't talk about because it is kind of sensitive, right?
Yeah.
But when a rape has taken place, there's just a number of things that really can happen that reduces the possibility for pregnancy, you know. And sometimes it's
careful, Bishop. Careful, Bishop.
Yeah, you know.
You're talking about a careful raper?
Bishop, where are you going with this?
No. I'm talking about someone who, when somebody confines in them and say, I've been subjected to that, you take them straight to Sissoko, to the place where some medical intervention can take place that lessen the possibility of that pregnancy taking place. Remember that is after some time after the sperm is induced that it meets the egg and fertilization takes place, you know. And it's something to us that sometimes it calls for just a responsible...
That is subject to education because a lot of people haven't gone through the experience. Recoils and hide away from society, don't come forward.
And
so
that's one of the
yes?
Correct. And I'm saying to you, correct, and that's one of the interventions and alternatives that they must do. But can you realize
what is the teaching there to those people? When raped, don't hide away.
There is, you know, we are going to have a woman on this program who has been raped and living with HIV.
Yes.
And
she's going to speak about abortion and her choice. I won't say anything further until we come to her. But hold on, Bishop. Hold on, Bishop.
Yes.
But Stratton and I have spoken to a number of these ladies before on the issue of abuse and so on, not abortion. We spoke to them, you know, on the whole issue of the abuse, right?
Yes.
And do you know what we get from them? Why we seem to be coming around again and again to the issue of choice? One such lady asked, how can anyone else measure my torture and pain? How can, and I'm asking, you answer that lady. How can the church, how can even you as pastor measure that lady's torture and pain?
And what one thing that I can, in my humble opinion, do is to try to, first of all, protect her from further trauma and pain.
No, but who is deciding that? You or her?
No. What happens thereafter? If you would flog her, if you would ostracize her, if you would in fact cause a second such incident happen to her, you would have predisposed her to that. But what if some other things that you mentioned earlier on comes into play? Compassion and support and all the other things that we know have worked. And can I tell that we're talking about less than 1% of the reason for abortion?
But isn't there the whole issue of the compassion that must be given, granted, facilitated to her to make her own choice? We're speaking about that compassion as well, you know. Because if you can't measure her own torture, then you can't judge.
Compassion for her
and you
own
can't
choice.
decide that our mental well-being can be corrected by
there is a
this
compassion.
measure?
There's a compassion. There's a compassion that takes in consideration all those who are to be compassionate too. And so the compassion that we're talking about is a compassion that shows indiscretion and incompassion, if there's such a word, for the unborn child. And not only that, this mother is the same person you're asking to carry this guilt of lack of compassion when that would have been done. And I'm saying to us that, listen to me, life has some misfortunes that we wish we could reverse. But it doesn't say that we should have a second misfortune to correct the previous misfortune.
All
and
right.
what we're having now, and listen to the abuse. I heard you on the matter of abuse. I was so careful to listen to you.
Yes.
Do you know that, for example, when we legalize abortion for youngsters, we are giving license to the men who are abusing and trafficking our young women, who are commandeering them to go and, because of their circumstances, to go and have an abortion done. The many university students who have been exploited by persons who should know better, and because they don't want to give up their education, they would choose to accept that money for an abortion. And in many other situations where I would say, and again I'm going to tread light, sometimes
please.
our dear
and I can only give you 30 more seconds.
Yes, there should be a little bit more sense of responsibility to hold our men accountable and don't make them get to it by a quick fix. And I'm saying to you that we should do everything to exercise that compassion, not only for the mother, but for the unborn child.
First, we should sentence them to not take care of that child for the next 18 years.
Killing, but killing is not
No, Bishop Bailey.
Killing is not an option.
All right.
All right, thanks.
All right,
Thanks,
Bishop Bailey, we have got to go, and thanks.
Thank you ever so much.
Good.
Next week again.
Right. All right. Back in a moment. Well, Shati?
Yes.
The bishop is always fervent, eh?
Yes.
That much has to be said, right? And here's a man with equal passion. Dr. Michael Abrams, consultant, obstetrician, and gynecologist, media and social commentator who is passionately pro-choice. Dr. Abrams, we have to do this with just a mouthful because we're getting some ugly eye from the producers. So, I will not call in any name. So, in the 6 or 7 minutes that we're going to be allotted, what is it that comes to mind sharply on this whole issue of abortion when it comes to the compassion that you think may be missing and how we are not allowing enough women to speak?
Yeah, thanks for having me on this. And I like to say that I'm passionately pro-choice, but I'm not pro-abortion. That's the first thing, because people have to call people who are, some people like to refer to pro-choice people as pro-abortion. I don't like abortion. I would like to see it never happen again. But At the same time, I believe a woman has a right to choose to make informed decisions about what happens to her body. Health is defined as physical, mental, and social well-being. And pregnancy has the potential to affect a woman's physical, mental, social, emotional, and financial well-being. So it is something that people will call it different issues. The abortion issue, they may call it a moral issue or a legal issue or a medical legal issue, but it is definitely a women's health issue. And people will say, well, it's about the fetus, whatever, and I do understand that. But we have to be honest about pregnancy and how it can affect a woman's body. As I said, it can affect all aspects of a woman's health. And I think she has the right to make that decision. Because, as a woman going to go through all of that, So, for example, there are physical and physiological changes that go on in a woman's body when she gets pregnant. As you know, there are circulatory changes, there's gastrointestinal changes. Some women develop constipation, acid reflux, hemorrhoids. Some women get nerve compression and pain in their back, pain in their wrist. Some have separation of the muscles in the abdomen called a recti. Sometimes some have separation of the pubic bone, the symphysis pubis, and that can be very painful. Some women have severe nausea and vomiting. Some women have developed clots in their legs, which can go to their lungs. And that's only in pregnancy itself. We're talking about labor and the complications after, the possible complications after. You can have hemorrhage, infection, and even death. About 300,000 women die every year from pregnancy-related complications. Every year. So it's very easy for somebody to say to a woman, no, man, you just got to keep that. When you really don't know what the woman is dealing with, you don't know her circumstances. And I think this debate, we should have respect on both sides and empathy on both sides.
But those are good medical reasons, yes? But without any knowledge of or foreknowledge of what might take place, some people have abortion just for choice. I don't want this now.
That is true. To be honest with you, I'm really interested in the truth. And
interested in
say it again?
The truth. The truth.
Truth. Okay.
I may have my ideas about things, but I like evidence. And even in my practice, I've been doing a survey for the past almost 2 years. And every woman who's been in my office, I'd get the reproductive history. And that's about 1 out of every 3 women who comes to see me has had an abortion. I didn't realize it was that high till I started in the stats, like 35%. And what I started doing is asking women now who come in who are pregnant. I realized that many pregnancies are unplanned.
Right.
And I think if you want to attack the abortion issue, I am pro-choice, but I don't believe in just changing the law and saying, well, guess what? As of now, abortion legal and done.
Okay.
What I want is to see a reduction in abortion. And research has shown that if you want to do that, you have to combine that with comprehensive sex education and availability of contraceptives, even to young people. And that's something people are uncomfortable with. But if you really want the abortion rate to drop, that works. And what I want people to understand is that, for me being pro-choice, the thing is, looking after women for decades, literally. If a woman is pregnant and she does not want that baby or that pregnancy, that fetus, the embryo, whatever is inside her, she is going to find a way to get it out. And what happens when you have laws like this, they work mainly against poor women, financially disadvantaged women, because women who can afford it will find somebody who is professional and can do it safely and do it. When a woman is, for example, in the inner city and she has no money and it's illegal and she carry the fine, to go find somebody who the money to pay for it privately. She's gonna go to her friend down the road, get some tablets, get some boost stuff, and end up with complications. So this is not to say abortion is great, everybody must have one. It's saying that if it is not illegal, then the women who find themselves in positions where they really make a decision, it can be done safely. Because let's face it, a lot of people are anti-abortion. I see a lot of noise being made from a lot of men, especially. And with all due respect, it's hard for a man to understand what a woman goes through when she's pregnant.
All right, I want to ask you this, because I just have one last question and then Stratton's one last question, because them ugly eye we would have talk about. I would say people are draw for things. And Michael, me too fat so me can't run. So we're going to give way to what the producer is demanding. But you're talking about the ladies who come into your office. What?
Right.
What is right? Right. What beyond concern? What is their cry? What is their pain? That you because here you're there as their doctor, right? What is it that is most troubling on this whole subject of abortion?
What it is for women, for a lot of women, it's an offense that people are trying to tell them what, control them and what they do with their bodies. And I understand. I empathize with the other side. I say, yeah, but there's another life inside you, another something. And I do understand, don't get me wrong.
Right.
I do. But for example, you have a woman in an abusive relationship and she wants to get out of it. And her man say, yo, I don't want to take the pill and dash with that. And she wake up with the man having sex with her. Because men will have sex with women while they're sleeping. Men will have sex with women with a condom and they take it off during sex and don't tell them. Men will have sex with women and ejaculate deliberately inside them when they say they're not going to do it. And I'm not saying it's only men, because women have to take responsibility too, because it's on both sides. But I'm saying, let's say you're a woman who has several children, she can't afford anymore, she wants to leave this, and the man they impregnate her, and then when she's pregnant, and she ejaculate, I don't want that, and she can't afford that, and she just missed her period. I think it's cruel to look on her and say, yo, guess what? You didn't sign up for this, but you better carry this to term. You better go through labor and deliver this and deal with this.
Doctor,
your final question.
Yeah, may or may not have moral considerations. If they do have moral consideration, what is the compromise? Do you hide behind the fact that you're a professional doing a job? Or is there doctors who will say, I'm not into this?
Or is there any hiding at all that can be because you're a professional doing your job?
You see, it depends on what people call moral. Because people have different limits, and that's really a hard thing to define. As a gynecologist, I look after women for a living. So a lot of my empathy is on the side of women and the women I look after. Because, and to be honest, there are things I will say that you gentlemen will not see because of my job, in all fairness to you.
Yes.
If I'm watching women go through pregnancy for years and watching them go through labor, watching them deliver, watching the complications during pregnancy, labor, and postpartum, my perspective is going to be very different from someone who doesn't really see that. So a lot of my empathy goes out to women who find themselves in positions like that.
All right, Dr. Abrams, we have to take it there, right? We will certainly have you back here.
Thanks
because
for the
I want to know who your producer is.
I'm going to tell you that off the air because I want to tell you something. It's not Billy, and this much I'll tell you. The producer, Billy is the producer. The threat is from his assistant. That's where the threat is coming from. And she's a lady. So we have to be very, very careful. Michael.
Thanks for the enlightenment.
We don't want to tick them off,
No, we don't want to tick them off at all. You have to come back because there's a lot more to be said on this score. Eh?
Thanks very, very much for having me. Big up yourself, Billy. Big up yourself, Curtis.
All right. Good. Right. Welcome back to Real Chat. We promised you we would have a woman speaking about the choices that has to be made by her. And we have Samantha, who was raped at a very young age and is living with HIV. It's important how we listen with compassion on the choice that she made and the choices for others that she is also willing to defend. Samantha, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
You were raped. It
Yes.
was devastating. Then you heard you were going to have a baby. How did that feel? What went through your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, it was like the end of the world because at the end of the day, I don't know anything about having a child or anything. I don't know nothing about having a baby, right? So being a young teenage mother and going to antenatal clinic, being there, you've been criticized by bigger folk, which they should be the one that should be assisting you. But at the end of the day, they discriminate against you because you're young. Some people make classes say you're bad, that's why you get pregnant and stuff like that. So it was kind of hard for me being a young teenage mother.
And then you discovered that you had HIV, right?
Yes.
You wanted to get rid of this child?
At first, I wanted to, but after doing a second thought, I changed my mind because I'm saying that what's the sin? It's like killing an innocent child that don't have anything to do with whatever happened to you. It's not like it is his fault why whatever happened to you.
And that was a thought that came up by yourself, or did somebody intimate that to you, telling that don't do it, it's an innocent child?
Well, at that time it was by me because I decided it on my own.
Did anybody encourage you not to have it?
No, nobody did say anything.
Okay.
But weren't you worried about the child being infected with HIV? But in coming to this decision?
At one point I was worried because at one point when I just found out this lady at the health center that gave me back the result, she was like, at a young age, your life done, you know? Your life done. You don't have no, it no make no sense, your life just done at a young age. I'm like, and then my eyes full with water and I started crying. And then I went back home and I said to my mother, and my mother was like, go so, all I have to do is just live a life.
Would you condemn others in your situation, or would you condemn a woman in general who wants to have an abortion for whatever reason?
Well, it depends on the reason. For me personally, I think it's their choice if they want to do the abortion. So if they want to do it, it's their choice. They must know the reason why they want to do it behind. They must know the reason behind what they want, why they want to do the abortion.
Yeah.
So I can say not to do it. I can encourage you not to do it, and I can give you a million reasons not to do it. But at the end of the day, it would be your choice if you want to take my encouragement or you just want to get that.
Samantha, do you ever think about the child not having a known father?
Yes, I think about it. But at the end of the day, once you show the child love, then at some point, yes, the child is going to ask, Mommy, where is Daddy? But at the end of the day, you have to be honest with the child and say, son or my daughter, this is what happened and this is what is taking place. X, Y, and Z happened, but I turned out you don't have a father.
Tell me,
so,
were you a church person?
Yeah, usually when church when I was much younger.
Would that have shaped your decision?
Well, not really.
you're a mentor now for E for Life. What do you tell
Yes, I am.
young mothers? What do you tell those who have been abused? What do you say to them when some might be saying to you, as I'm sure they have, that me can't live with this, me need an abortion?
Well, the only thing I can say to them is that, first of all, it doesn't make any sense to take an innocent child life that don't have anything to do with whatever happened to you. It's not like it's your fault or it's your fault why whatever may happen to you or whatever situation you may be going through. I don't think we should be taking the risk of doing an abortion because most of the time we as female we may not know when we may get pregnant. And we may go and say, friend, I'm going to do abortion. But at the end of the day, at sometimes you may put yourself like through a life and death situation. Because one, you may reach like a 4 months, 5 months. You know, that's like a life and death situation. You do the abortion, you may not live to tell the tale. Right?
Yes,
So sometimes
In the final analysis, Samantha, are you comforted by the fact that this child, no matter where it came from, is a part of you?
yes.
Yes.
And you haven't, as someone is asking, you haven't regretted for a moment bringing this child?
No.
No.
I haven't regretted none at all. Because having him show me what responsibility can be done, showing me that, here what, you can be my motivation to help me push myself forward. So having my child at a younger age and being in that situation, it helps me to push myself.
All right,
All right.
Samantha, thanks so much for talking to us. See?
You're welcome.
Okay. Remember to share. It's a program to be shared. Subscribe and support the program by contributing to the Cash App $Real Chat. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Real Chat. To close this edition's debate, and we're going to have more, but to close this edition's debate on abortion, we now have the Right Reverend Dr. Howard K.A. Gregory, the Archbishop, Primate and Metropolitan of the Anglican Church in the province of the West Indies. You have written at length about the social cost and consequences and the compassion that is sometimes clearly missing when we hotly, passionately, contentiously argue, putting our own biases in front of us, seeing nothing else when we discuss this whole issue of abortion. What is it, Father Gregory, that is uppermost in your mind?
Well, when I decided to pen this article, it was in response to an ongoing focus around the issue of abortion. But what is clear is that we are not really having a dialogue as a society. What we are having is the opposite poles almost shouting at each other. Having arrived at position, we we're not listening to each other. We're not talking to each other. We just keep affirming our position, and if necessary, we attack the personhood of those on the other side. What I want to do is to put on the table a perspective which says
beg your pardon.
the issue is not just one or the other. It's not just a question of being right or wrong. And I come at it from my Anglican perspective, which says that many of the issues which we face in life, theological and moral, are issues that are more complicated. The issues are informed by our context and other considerations, and we need to look at issues in terms of their complexity. So one of the things I point out, that while the church, and whatever we mean by church, but I would say while persons of a Christian commitment can articulate a position and have every right to do so, at the same time, we must recognize that we are not the only ones with a voice and a perspective. The human being is a complicated creation by God, and it takes different disciplines and different perspectives to reflect on the human condition. So, yes, we have a perspective as a religious community, but we must also listen to the perspective that comes from the medical community, the scientific community. And as you will see, Capri is an institution that does research of a sociological nature, but also that has implications, whether it's financial or psychological. All of this has to be part of the mix. And I'm also saying that if we are looking at an issue that relates to human beings, it cannot be just, this is what the law says. Let's put down a law that covers and seals and shuts everything. We must bear in mind, as I've indicated, and some people don't seem to understand, the law is not always just and compassionate. That is part of our history, how law has been used in the history of Jamaica with a history of slavery. You had laws, they were not just. In the same way, if you look at what was done in the United States with the children that were torn from their parents, law could justify what was being done because you can look at what the books say. But was it compassionate? That's what I'm asking people to engage and to look at. That we can put down a law, but we must also do it recognizing that in the very articulation of the law, it must bear in mind and leave room to ensure that it is just for everyone concerned as well as compassionate when you're dealing with human beings.
Compelling argument, and one could not take issue with it. But some may want to ask you, with your religious background, whether there's a place for abortion.
Yes, I think there is. Because we are trying to say that every situation can be resolved the same way. If you look at the findings, let's not even get to Capri yet. Let the Children's Agency speak, which they did, I think may have been in 2017, where they spoke about it. I'm just scrolling to find the thing, where they spoke about the number of children who were abused in any 1 year. And the number of those who were sexually abused leading to pregnancies. Okay? The question is, are we talking about the same thing in a situation as that, as we are talking about somebody who has made a bad decision and decide, well, you know, I made a bad judgment in terms of my relationship that has gone sour.
I'm now pregnant, I want to have an abortion. Are we talking about the same thing? And I'm saying no. And I would also add, some of these children that get pregnant, they are probably about 13. What, and a lot of men are talking in the issue. What is it like? First of all, we're not women. We don't know what it's like to be pregnant to have a child. But an immature body and mind to be able to go through this because we say, well, this is it, you can't have an abortion, you have to go through, and we will adopt a child or whatever have you. What are you doing to that life which is right here before you? And that's a question which I raised in relation to a number of other situations.
Others will say at that juncture, Rev, that there is another life in consideration.
And it's murder of the unborn.
Yes.
And there's no other way to look at it. Murder of the unborn.
Yes, and I hear that free, but at the same time, as I've indicated in some of the situations in which, even if you look at the conditions under which some of our children live, a society in which there's all this violence and what have you, we have to ask ourselves, what do we mean by being pro-life, for example? Because that term, I regard myself as pro-life. But pro-life cannot only relate to the unborn. Pro-life must relate to those who are right here before me and whose situation requires action on my part. So I am not saying it's one or the other. I'm also saying that there are situations in which a mother's life may be at risk. So you have to make a judgment in terms of how do you deal with that situation. Okay? So there are issues and situations which are not as clear-cut. I don't know if you, I think most of us realize that in the COVID build-up in the United States, there were decisions being made
as to who to die.
as to who should make it, It's a decision, it's not something that is not alive already. There are those decisions that have to be made. In a situation where there's a life at risk, how do you make those decisions? I'm not saying there's an answer that you can give to every situation. I'm saying those things must be borne in mind. And therefore, if there is going to be a law, I think the law should say that in some situations, and I'll come to this thing in terms of children, in some situations, there should be room for consultation and for guidance, whether it's a psychologist involved, the medical personnel treating, or whatever. Putting in place a framework for making some of those decisions.
I want to ask you a quick question, Red. Are you relegating the religious position as just being a moral signpost?
No. I talk about biblical, theological, moral, that our perspective is informed by what we understand of God, God's creation, God's purpose, how that has been revealed to us in Scripture. But God has not stopped speaking to his people. God speaks to us now and in our context. And therefore, the same God who has spoken in the past, has spoken through Scripture, also speaks to us in face of the challenges which we have to confront. And we use what we understand to be the mind of God as revealed in Scripture in making those decisions, recognizing that we may make the wrong decisions.
And challenges that can't be just cast aside, given our moral bent. No?
Yes, yes, yes. That's true. That's true. That's true. So one of the things that we have done in 2005, there was a committee set up, an advisory body set up to start looking at this issue of abortion in Jamaica. The late Dr. Wynette Patterson was the person who chaired that. That's 2005. We are now at 2021.
Yes.
Right.
The question is, are we going to keep kicking the thing down the road to avoid decisions? And as Capri has indicated, there's a cost to it. Do we just keep kicking the thing and avoid making a decision?
On that note, Father, on that note, you will have to promise us that you will return to be discussing this where we are now. Where do we, whether we continue to kick this can down the road, right? We're going to be inviting yourself again, a representative from Capri, because we must discuss these challenges that won't go away, these issues that inform the here and now about social cost and consequence, see? That we must all address, right? And which we cannot deflect, not even the politicians.
You know what? There's one side, for example, Capri has gotten some flack from because they recommend that there are situations where abortion should take place in a minor without parental consent.
Right.
And one of the things I'm arguing is it's pushing us down a sticky wicket, but because what we are looking at, why is it that a child cannot discuss an issue of that importance with parents? What is the relationship between a parent and a child? And I'm saying that reflects more of a problem of our family and family life than it is just an issue of abortion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perspective.
Perspective.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Father. And as I say, you will have to return because we have to keep talking about the subject. Eh?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. When we return, the last word. And guess who is going to have it?
All right, welcome back to the Real Chat. We are at a very important segment of this program. It's called The Last Word, but we really had a stern program early in the year. We dealt with cricket.
Yes.
Had some luminaries, Jimmy Adams.
Yes.
Revelation, the people, you must listen to Basil Butcher Jr.
Right.
With the new science that is going into sport.
And Tony Gray from Trinidad.
From Trinidad.
And a very interesting perspective about research that we haven't yet done about our needs.
And our own Courtney Francis tells us what is happening in Jamaica. And while we were lamenting and cursing the Jamaican performance in the Super 50, we were reminded that they didn't get a time to practice before.
This is it.
They were playing in the country. So what we're seeing is what is being reflected by that. Eh? So sometimes you need to know a little bit more before you comment. And we are here to provide that for you.
And then there was the interesting trail about trying to return to sporting activity, re-COVID. We delved further into the pandemic as to whether it is our health sector may buckle, whether a lockdown is looming based on the positivity rate,
and
right?
we are in serious times and people may not understand the gravity of the situation where the number of rooms for our people are diminishing so that we may have to find other spaces if we can. But we need to take it seriously.
And the fact that we have to be rethinking now this whole vaccination program, right? Is it our standalone? Is it engaging our CARICOM neighbors?
Partners, yes.
Yeah, so we have
and in Jamaica,
more meaningful procurement.
What will we do about the scarce resource in terms of application to vaccination and to testing? Dilemma.
And finally, we dealt with the ongoing argument of abortion, and we had we invited back
Bailey.
Bishop Bailey, who is fixed on the issue of
not taking a life.
Not taking a life.
As
right?
against Bishop.
As against the position of Dr.
Bishop.
Michael Abrams and Father Gregory, both who are more open to all what is socially contextual about the subject. All that we have to look at. And of course, we heard the important voice of Samantha,
yes.
who was raped, who is living with HIV, and who still carried her child.
And so, we are left now with the last word. And there's no question as to who will present the last word. Do we ever say? Curtis Myrie does.
I'm going to present the last word because Stratton and I focused on the letter from Lloyd, the whole issue of motivating our players, and all that determination and defiance about their own self-worth and esteem, though they were selected as replacement, right? We're talking about the clean sweep, two-test sweep of the young West Indies players there as replacement, substitutes, but never as Lloyd had advised them as second stringers.
Yeah, because we would view them as what left.
Yes, never as what left. And how they showed us that with pluck and with pride, one may achieve what you willed, right? And what you set out to do. So I wrote my own note. It's called Note from the Pavilion. This after the first test victory. And I'm even more heartened after the second test win because of Captain Craig Brathwaite dedicating the series win to the people of the Caribbean. My note is called Note from the Pavilion. It may simply serve as a note, all that I want to say. Voice from, though not assigned on behalf of the Pavilion. In celebrating the 2021 West Indies opening test win over Bangladesh. It's not a letter you'd write, more something you'd scribble on some crumpled piece of paper where might not even make sense, jotted down with racing pulse rate, but still a note you'd pass to the dressing room if there was a way to do it. Like Sir Clive Lloyd told them in his letter, though you'd never be able to do it so eloquently, it was a chance to be taken to turn up the ting, which in any Caribbean dialect meant only one thing. Almost the same generational years when West Indies cricketers were world kings, we have been waiting on what's game-changing. The stunning 3-wicket win was the highest successful run chase in Asia, the 5th highest overall, and the 2nd highest by a West Indies team, with the highest successful run chase in history being that by the West Indies, scoring 418 for 7 against Australia in Antigua in 2003. Never expecting the unexpected, it's twice as miraculous. Feat that could have make you talk pure foolishness. Substitutes, who Lloyd reminded that they were never second stringers. They played like the rhythm of our very heartbeats, like them know why we stay up without sleep whole night from transistor radio days to all where we are download now, our phone, playing hopefully to a place who never knew we were in haste. And all we wanted, what we hoped and prayed for, was for them to just fight for all that we stood for, the type of fight for what we should continue to live for. It would just be a simple note, held tightly in the bearer's hand, which, when opened, would explain why these players meant so much to us. Without noting any detail, it would still be telling the full story. At every match, we were not just spectators to be entertained in a packed pavilion. Each inning, each performance was scoreboard of remaining resolute. The note in the dressing room, when opened, would simply just be 3 words: play for we. Play for we. Stratan?
Play for we. Good chat, eh? But that ends a big program for this week, which we entitled the
Big chat.
Yeah.
Join us next week. But remember, share, subscribe, and support the program by contributing to the Cash App, $Real Chat, that's highlighted on the screen. Join us next week for more chat. Real chat.